Chapter 1748. After destroying this kid's corpse, there will finally be no one with the surname Wei Gong in this world. Dustless stretched his body in satisfaction as he breathed out the air in a relaxed manner. The faint black fog on his face disappeared, and a cheerful little dimple appeared on his handsome face. "It's rare to see you smiling so brightly," Saber was slightly moved. She had been working with Dustless for quite some time, and her impression of him was that there was always a layer between them. She had never been able to see through Dustless's true nature. Now that Dustless finally revealed his true feelings, Saber understood that Dustless was not as cold as she thought. Tens Ho. A weak flame slowly burned on Wei Gong Shiro's body and slowly expanded until it covered the entire corpse. After the corpse was reduced to ashes, Dustless carried Saber and flew away. The latter only struggled symbolically for a moment before she let it go. Perhaps Saber did not realize that ever since she met Dustless, her personality had slowly changed. She even had the tendency to develop into a little girl. King Arthur was an extremely powerful person when he was alive. Everyone kept a respectful distance from him. He was outstanding and powerful. No matter who he was, they would feel ashamed of themselves. However, things were different now. When she met Dustless, who was even more powerful, it was inevitable that she would be affected. Her personality slowly changed without her noticing. This was not Saber's fault. This was human nature. Humans were originally creatures that adapted. When the environment changed, their personality and mentality would slowly change as well. They would gradually adapt to the unfamiliar environment and be unconsciously affected. By the way, you told me before. Rin and Osaka and Ilya are both masters. If we want to resurrect the Holy Grail, we have to kill their servant. Are you really willing to do that? Saber looked down at the bustling Dongmu city with her clear eyes and asked Dustless suspiciously. Saber was clear about the complicated relationship between Rin, Ilya, and Dustless. Why not? Dustless calmly asked in a carefree manner. There are gains and losses. Gaining something means losing something else. I've long been aware of this. Although Sarvant, who killed Ling and Ilya, let them down, it's also a good thing from a certain perspective. Both of them have lost their status as servants, so the unfriendly relationship between them will automatically disappear. So, I've decided to kill both Ling and Ilya Sarvant. This way, the relationship between the two of them can be restored to its previous harmonious state. Wu Qin answered solemnly. His tone was resolute and decisive. Saber could tell that Wu Qin was serious. Those two girls will hate you when they find out the truth. Sigh, speaking of which, I just realized that your life is so difficult. Not only do you have to take care of your enemies, but you also have to be careful of your own backyard. Saber's tone was filled with sympathy and pity. You just found out. Dustless rolled his eyes at Saber and said, there's nothing we can do about it. The Holy Grail belongs to one person. The other candidates must be eliminated. Aren't you worried that they will dislike you? Dislike me? That's impossible. If Berserker can kill Archer, that's good. If he can't, I'll attack Berserker and put the blame on Caster or Lancer. Even if I kill Berserker and Archer, Ling and Ilya won't hate me. They don't know who did it. Dustless had a cunning expression on his face. Before this, he had already planned everything. What a sneaky guy. Saber pouted and snorted. Ahem. Saber, instead of talking about these boring topics, let's discuss the signing of the contract as soon as possible. The longer it takes, the more unfavorable it will be for you. Staring at Saber with her bright eyes, Dustless's eyes lit up. The so-called signing a contract was actually a way to take advantage of others. It was just a nicer name. Saber's cheeks quickly turned red to her ears. She trembled and said, it seems to be a forest below. You don't want to do that kind of thing here, do you? What's wrong with that? There will be no suitable opportunity when we return to the Ahrensburg family. Dustless said, and at the same time, his body fell to the ground. To be safe, he set up a dark enchantment. Even if the existence of the enchantment was seen, no one would know what Dustless and Saber were doing. Are you sure that the way of signing the contract is effective? Saber lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Dustless's eyes. She was about to unbutton her clothes, but she stopped. She always felt that what Dustless said was not reliable. This is the truth. Dustless gently nodded and said with great certainty, there have been such examples before. Even if Master is not a magician, he can sign a contract with Servant. Wei Gong Sherlang has already been killed. There is no other choice but to join you. We can only walk this path to the end. Anyway, all of this was given to us by you. After thinking about it for a while, Saber finally gritted her teeth and chose to accept Dustless's explanation. She really couldn't think of any reason why Dustless would deceive her. Everything was about motives, and Dustless had no reason to harm Saber. She then lightly waved her hand, and the heavy armor and outer clothes were removed one after another, revealing her flawless and delicate skin. Dustless's eyes turned red. Then, he turned into a hungry wolf and pounced on her. When he woke up, it was already the next morning. Chapter 1749. Saber opened her eyes in a daze. Her emerald eyes were slightly confused. She then moved her body slightly and suddenly felt uncomfortable. Her expression changed slightly, and her small eyes suddenly snorted. This guy must be a starving ghost. I can't feed him enough. Saber showed a bitter smile at the corner of her mouth. She found that she was unable to move at all. Last night, Dustless squeezed out all of her life's energy. She was exhausted. At the same time, Dustless and Saber also completed the contract between each other. From now on, Saber was Dustless's servant. Phew. I'm so tired. Dustless stretched, his eyes sunken, and yawned. Really, even the Ten-Tails will be worn down by this reckless life sooner or later. You still have the cheek to say that. Saber's charming voice sounded. He turned his head and saw that it was Saber. Staring at the girl's complaining expression, Dustless was tangled and depressed. He also complained in his heart, there are only cows that are tired to death. When have you heard of a field that is ruined by plowing? Saber is really too much. She clearly has the advantage in this kind of thing, but she still looks like she's at a disadvantage. Although he was dissatisfied in his heart, Dustless's expression did not change. He could only help Saber stand up with a smile. Looking at her cute red cheeks, Dustless could not help but give her a light peck. Feeling that her face was attacked, Saber stared at Dustless with a reproachful look. She stomped her feet angrily, and the latter just smiled shamelessly. It's time to go back. You haven't seen Alice Phil for a long time, right? Go back and catch up. In the castle of Ahrensburg. The results are really surprising. How long has it been, and 2 masters have already disappeared? Who is so strong? Are there other mysterious and powerful heroic spirits in this Holy Grail war? In the luxurious castle, Ling's eyes were slightly worried. He stared at the distant sky and was deep in thought. His usual arrogant face was now replaced by a serious expression. No matter which master it was, they would be shocked to see 2 competitors disappear out of the blue. Yo, Ling! Dustless's voice suddenly came from the corridor. However, Ling, who was upset, did not seem to hear it. He continued to stand there and ponder about who was behind this. This guy. Dustless saw this and could not help but raise his eyebrows. He slowly walked over, and Saber followed closely behind him. Cough, 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 Ling, who was in a daze. To be more precise, he was looking at Dustless. Or more accurately, he was looking at Saber, who was behind him. This is Saber, the enemy too. Seeing Saber appear, Ling was very nervous. After all, she was the servant of the palace guard. Archer, hurry up and give me Saber, stop right there. Seeing that Rin was about to make a big fuss, Dustless quickly made a stop gesture. Then, he slowly said, Ling, although the process is a little complicated and not suitable for children, I still have to tell you the truth. I am Saber's master now. When his voice fell, Dustless raised his head proudly. Rin Tozaka often mocked him for being a servant all his life. Today, he could finally hold his head high for once. You are Saber's master. That's a cheap joke. Rin placed her hands on her waist. Her face was full of disdain. She looked at him with a look that said, don't you dare try to fool me. I've already said it. It's up to you to believe it or not. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly. He ignored Rin's shocked gaze and left with Saber. By the way, I've killed Shiro and Shinji Tamatsuki. You don't have to look for them anymore. Their names have been removed from the Holy Grail War. Before leaving, Dustless added another sentence. Since Dustless had adopted Rin and his family many years ago, Rin and Wei Gong Shiro could only be considered ordinary classmates. The number of times they met could be counted on one hand, and the relationship between them was also extremely strange. Naturally, they did not have a good impression of each other. Did this guy really become Saber's master? After a while, Rin was shocked. She suddenly felt that her brain was not big enough. She suddenly realized that this Holy Grail War was very troublesome. After living with Dustless for 10 years, Rin knew how difficult it was to deal with this guy. Hey. Dustless, you're breaking the rules. You were a heroic spirit before. How can you participate in this Holy Grail War? This is cheating. I'm going to report you to the church. Rin chased after Saber and shouted. However, she did not expect a cold light to sweep over her. Little girl, if you dare to speak carelessly, I will kill you immediately. Saber held the holy sword with both hands. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. She was obviously serious. This guy. Rin was speechless. He was now sure that Saber's master was Dustless. If it was fake, Saber would not be so protective of Dustless. Speaking of which, you're not a magician. How are you going to provide Saber with mana? Hee. You don't have to worry about that, Rin. Although I don't understand the complicated principles of magicians, I know very well that mana can be replenished when mana is depleted. Chapter 1750. Ling couldn't help but be dumbstruck when he heard Wu Chen's indifferent reply. This fellow's level of shamelessness is unflattering. Especially when some words were spoken by him, the meaning of everything changed, and it's even to the extent that it's exactly what I wish for, you. The corner of his mouth wriggled. Just as he was about to remind Dustless of some necessary content, Dustless and Saber entered the bedroom, not giving Ling a chance to refute at all. Dustless, this guy, he must be eager to replenish his mana with Saber in his heart. Ling reprimanded loudly with extreme dissatisfaction, cursing Dustless thousands of times in his heart. But this is also good. While this guy has no time to care about Ilya and me, I'll go and find her to decide the victor. After all, I'll have to face her sooner or later. Ling's eyes shone. All along, Dustless had been interfering in her duel with Ilya for various reasons. Now, she could take advantage of this period of time to decide the victor. TSK, what a brave little girl. However, little did she know that Dustless was looking down at Ling's back from the window at this moment, and every move of his could not escape from his calm eyes. Is it really appropriate for you to scheme against Ling and Ilya like this? Saber questioned. She had a feeling that if she stayed with Dustless for too long, not only would her body degenerate, but her mind would also be polluted. Idiot, your thoughts are too childish, Saber. Dustless scratched Saber's nose and explained, I've already said before that there will only be one victor in the Holy Grail War, and it will undoubtedly be me, who is the strongest. Their defeat is inevitable. The word scheme is too far-fetched. I just want them to be eliminated early. Isn't it good to leave early? After all, the Holy Grail is not theirs, and it can also avoid the battle between Ling and Ilya, and the relationship between the two sides will not be damaged because of the Holy Grail War. It seems to make sense. Saber nodded vaguely, feeling that Dustless's words made sense. Even if Ling won all the way, he would still be defeated by Dustless in the end. It was better to eliminate her early, so that she and Dustless would not kill each other. In a forest full of dead branches. The young girl was hiding in the forest, panting. Her face was full of sweat and her breathing speed had doubled. She looked very tired. At the same time, she didn't forget to look at the surroundings, as if she was doing something shady. She was very alert. This person was Rin and Osaka. Archer. Rin Enbin muttered softly, and a slight ripple of power surged. Then, a figure quietly appeared. It was Archer with two swords in his hands. Ling. This seems to be the house of the little girl who owns the Berserker. Are you planning to make a move on her? I remember that he didn't allow you to start a war. Apparently, it wasn't Archer's first time here. He was quite familiar with this place. The he in his mouth was referring to Dustless. That's why we have to take advantage of Dustless's depravity to launch an attack. Ling said proudly. He then pointed at the faintly discernible castle in the distance. Archer, go ahead and scout it out. Understood, Master. Archer nodded and disappeared. Really, Master really knows how to order people around. Archer's figure appeared when he was still a few dozen meters away from the Ahrensburg family's castle. Just as he was about to sneak in, a flash of light appeared out of nowhere. It was a sneak attack on Archer. Bang! The mysterious figure suddenly appeared behind Archer. He lifted his leg and launched a fatal attack. Archer was completely unaware of the attack. Crack, crack, crack. Although it was just a normal kick, Archer felt that the part of his body that was attacked had all his bones broken. Such powerful strength. Is it a berserker? Archer's heart was in turmoil. The strength of the kick was outrageous. It was almost overwhelming. Only a berserker could have such a powerful heroic spirit. However, the mysterious attacker's aura was hidden perfectly. It didn't seem like a berserker who specialized in strength. Yo! Ignoring Archer's shocked face, Dustless took the initiative to greet him. He had a bright smile on his face. He looked very warm, but his actions were extremely despicable. Why are you the one who sneak attacked me? Aren't we in the same camp? Archer almost vomited blood. He knew that Dustless was a two-faced player, but he didn't expect him to be so shameless. He even attacked his own people. Although there was only one Holy Grail, and Dustless and Ling would fight sooner or later, it was only a matter of time. However, there was no need to fight now. Don't show such a shocked expression. This seems to be very normal. If you and Berserker duel, no matter who is killed in the end, the relationship between Ling and Ilya will definitely be broken. Since that's the case, I'll secretly kill you and push the responsibility to the other masters. Isn't this the best of both worlds? Dustless explained. That's true, Archer nodded stiffly. Although he knew that Dustless was being unreasonable, he and Saber felt that what Dustless said was reasonable. Regardless of whether Archer killed Berserker or Berserker killed Archer, the relationship between Ling and Ilya would eventually break down. Instead of that, it would be better for Dustless to secretly deal with them and push the blame to someone else. This way, it would be the best of both worlds, and their relationship would not collapse. Hey, Archer, do you think I'm great? Chapter 1751. Great. Archer put on a fake smile when he heard that. A person who was about to kill him still kept on saying that he was great. Archer's heart was filled with a million grass mud horses army. Then again, don't you want to fight with me? Archer. Dustless's tone suddenly became low, and he said coldly, although you can hide it from Ling, that simple girl, but you better not think that everyone believes in Sarvant like her, and don't think that your ridiculous trick can fool everyone. Archer's face changed slightly, and he refuted, sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. If you want to kill me, just come, but I won't wait for death. Archer held two swords, and his eyes were like torches staring at Dustless, and his fighting spirit was bursting. Your acting skills are too bad. Dustless curled his lips, and he keenly caught the panic in Archer's eyes, and immediately exposed his nature. Archer, or I should call you by your real name, Wei Miyashiro. As a transcendent being who had transmigrated, Dustless naturally knew Archer's true identity. He was actually Wei Gong Shirlang, but the only difference was that Wei Gong Shirlang had turned into a heroic spirit. In the original work, when Wei Miyashiro died, he signed a contract with the world's consciousness and became a heroic spirit. It's really surprising, I didn't expect to kill a person twice. Looking at Archer, who was ready for battle, Dustless was really surprised. How do you know this kind of thing? Seeing his identity exposed, Archer's face changed dramatically. He didn't expect Dustless to know this kind of private matter. Tell me, how do you know? I didn't tell anyone this kind of thing. Archer's voice was obviously heavier, and his hoarse voice was full of endless confusion. Even Rin Enbin didn't know this kind of thing, let alone Dustless. This. Sorry, I can't comment. Shrugging, Dustless showed an indifferent expression, you, just die here. Don't even think about it. The red-clothed archer, also known as the heroic spirit guard Gong Shirang, quickly rushed over. Dustless was too strong, so he could only launch a sneak attack, hoping to regain his advantage. Swish! Swish! Wei Gongshi was holding a sharp broadsword with both hands as he descended from the sky. The cold light of the blade was about to fall on Dustless's head. You overconfident little pawn. Does a dead person want to come out and scare people? TSK, just how much resentment do you have for me, Wei Gong Shirlang? Dustless had killed Wei Gong Qixi and Wei Gong Shiro. As a heroic spirit, Wei Gong Shiro naturally hated Dustless to the bone. Actually, I've always wanted to say something to you. Go and die. Archer roared as he swung his great sword at Dustless's head. Buzz buzz buzz, Dustless naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. His body immediately spewed out a large amount of chakra, forming a golden absolute defense. He looked like a skeleton. Clang 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 clang, Archer's attack, which was full of expectations, ended up in a miserable state. Archer's weak attack couldn't even break through Kansusanu's defense, let alone injuring Dustless. Caw caw caw. In the end, an extremely crisp sound suddenly stopped. Archer suddenly felt that his hands were lighter. That sound was similar to the sound of steel breaking, causing his old face to turn extremely ugly. This fellow is too strong. Let alone killing Dustless, it would be difficult to even shatter this unparalleled defense. Archer clenched his fist, the veins on his forehead were hard to hide. Seems like I can only use that. Archer's face was particularly gloomy. He was forced to use his unique skill at the beginning of the fight. This kind of miserable situation was really uncomfortable, and his self-esteem was unbearable. Archer's bitter mouth opened slightly, and he began to chant slowly. There was no other way. Dustless was too strong. Unless he used his trump card, he could barely deal with this guy. The body is made of the sword. The blood tide is like iron, the heart is like glass. He has never been defeated in countless battlefields. He has never been defeated and has never been understood by others. He is often alone, intoxicated in victory on the sword mound. Therefore, the cliff of life is meaningless. The body must be made of the sword. At the same time, the world in Dustless's eyes slowly changed. It was exactly the same as the scene in Archer's mouth. He came to a decaying sword mound full of yellow sand and broken swords. Behind Archer, there were also various huge gears. Caw, moving. It was a desolate scene. The slowly rotating gears seemed to be the foundation of this world. Turning your inner thoughts into a scene of sunset, Archer. Are you just trying to win my sympathy? Silly child, you are really funny. Inside the unique, infinite sword system enchantment, Dustless stood motionless. His eyes were full of contempt. He was not the slightest bit afraid of this broken world. In the original work, there was only one reason why Gilgamesh could lose to this enchantment. He was too good at courting death and showing off his superiority. If Gilgamesh could instantly pull out obedient leaving sword, this enchantment would be annihilated in an instant. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Huge ripples appeared in the void, followed by endless flashes of light. On top of Dustless's head, the sky was full of multicolored light. The person pointed by Qian Feng was impressively Archer. Chapter 1752. This kind of thing is useless. Archer calmly stared at the large light above Dustless's head, his eyes shining like stars. I don't know where your inflated confidence comes from. Just because of this fixed enchantment, you think you have the chance to defeat me and even kill me? Are you too ignorant? Dustless's expression turned cold, and thousands of golden lights shot out without mercy. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Hundreds, thousands, and even more exaggerated divine weapons were unleashed. One after another, they streaked across the sky. Their numbers were inexhaustible. The vortex above his head seemed to be connected to the golden world, and all kinds of weapons would never be exhausted. This is my confidence. He waved his hand in an imposing manner, and without exception, Archer's head also shot out groups of light, and similarly, countless weapons of all kinds shot out. Boom boom boom. The sky shook continuously, and sparks flickered non-stop. Countless divine weapons were destroyed at this moment, and there were broken pieces of weapons everywhere. Although Archer's king's treasure was fabricated, it still displayed great power and was temporarily on par with Dustless. This is just the beginning. Seeing that the situation was good, Archer was overjoyed. The beginning was better than expected. Buzz buzz buzz, the void trembled slightly again, and then countless vortexes gently spread out, forming small holes. Then, all kinds of weapons appeared again to support. Boom boom boom. The saturated and dense bombardment did not stop, and the debris of weapons on the ground piled up like a mountain. In a short time, the two of them had blasted out thousands of weapons. Ha ha ha. With your current state, you still want to dream of suppressing me. Ridiculous. Archer raised his head and laughed proudly. As the number of weapons gradually increased, he actually suppressed Dustless. The counterfeit suppressed the genuine one. So, you're sure you can defeat me? With this ability as the foundation, you can go to the next level and steal the head of my mortal enemy. Dustless calmly asked, you think too highly of yourself. This body is an alien that you heroic spirits can't defeat. Visitors from outer space. I think so too. All heroic spirits are historical figures. As for you, even if you searched the entire history of the world, you wouldn't exist. I don't think you're a creature of this world either. But that's not important. Archer nodded in agreement. He had always doubted the origin of Dushless, but there was no trace of him. Now that he heard that Dushless was a visitor from outer space, he felt relieved, and the doubts that lingered in his heart also disappeared. You said you are invincible? What a joke. I can duplicate all of your weapons, and I even have more of them than you. How dare you say that you are undefeatable? He's simply asking for humiliation. Looking at the silent Dushless, Archer saw it as a way to admit defeat. Do you think you can replicate all of my relics? Then I'll take out something genuine that can't be replicated. Dustless gave a strange smile and said in a deep voice, I'm really sorry for using trash to deal with you before. Now, I'll be a little more serious. Can't be replicated. It's impossible for such a thing to exist in this world. Archer had a bad premonition in his heart. He lowered his head and thought about what Dustless was talking about. Then, a wave of evil decaying energy suddenly came from the front. Caw caw caw. An unknown mysterious force came, and Archer's enchantment, Infinite Sword System, shook slightly. The crisp sound made Archer's heart jump to his throat. Is the Infinite Sword System collapsing? Archer's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. He looked up to the sky, and suddenly, there were countless cracks in the void. What the hell is that? Archer could not wait to look at Dushless. What kind of monster did this bastard take out? It made such a big movement. His enchantment faintly showed signs of collapsing even before he attacked. What the hell is that? Weapon. It looks so strange. Archer's gaze fell on Dustless's right hand. He suddenly realized that he was holding a strange-looking big sword in a spiral shape. The dark red demonic halo and the golden light intertwined. At the same time, it was shrouded in an evil and unknown force. It's a world of difference from the relics just now, and it really can't be replicated. Archer tried to imitate the strange sword in Dustless's hand, but he was surprised to find that he could not analyze the structure of the spiral weapon. It was as if it was something that did not belong to this world, just like Dushless. There's nothing to be surprised about. The relics that attacked you just now were actually just appetizers. It's right to say that they are relics, but speaking of my real relic, it's the Gwili sword, EA, in front of you. Dustless explained calmly. Then, he looked at Archer who was panicking and said coldly, EA, tear this broken and disgusting world apart. Boom, boom, boom. The dark red storm suddenly erupted. Under the influence of Dustless's thoughts, the Gwili sword rotated. The scarlet spiral light was instantly magnified by thousands of times. The whole world was affected by the storm. The place where Dustless stood was like a deep-sea whirlpool, constantly releasing dragon hurricanes to tear this broken world apart. Caw, caw, caw. The cracks in the void spread to the limit in an instant. Soon, layers of the void collapsed, gradually revealing the original world. The enchantment was instantly destroyed. Could this be a world-defying relic? Archer's face was ashen. He lowered his head and looked listless. What was a world-defying relic? In layman's terms, it was the most powerful relic that could easily tear a world apart. Chapter 1753. Crack. 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 Traces that looked like broken mirrors kept falling. It was extremely fragile. After being attacked by Obedient Parting Sword, EA, there was no need for Dustless to continue to attack. With a slight breeze, the inherent enchantment, Infinite Swords, gradually collapsed and was annihilated. No wonder I couldn't replicate it. It's a world-defying relic. The power of this relic is enough to destroy the world and its level is terrifying. Archer clenched his teeth and looked at Wu Chen's cheeky little face. He finally realized that this guy had been teasing him all along. It was simply outrageous. He clearly had the ability to directly destroy an inherent enchantment like infinite sword formation, but he had to use other trash to humiliate him. It was simply outrageous. Stupid thing. You're the one who thinks too highly of yourself. Dustless sneered. You should go back to the hero spirit temple. I'm going home to take a shower and sleep. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Dustless was distracted when he thought of Sebra's body. I haven't failed yet. Archer's eyes were overbearing as he heard Lin Huang's words. His hands continued to project as two ordinary-looking swords appeared in his hands. You know that you're going to die, but you still refuse to give up. Dustless was impressed by Archer's stubbornness. He snapped his fingers and said, Heavenlock. Swoosh. 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 Two golden holes appeared in the sky and chains that looked like they had seen the vicissitudes of life shot out from the holes. They did not turn around and went straight for Archer. Go to hell first. Archer jumped up and slashed the sword in his hand towards Lin Huang's head. However, at this critical moment, he could not move his body. The sword that was slashing towards Dustless also stopped in midair. Damn it. You have so many strange abilities. Archer sighed in disappointment. Dustless was right in front of him, but Archer was unable to move his body in the slightest. His four limbs were all bound by the heavenly lock. Archer. Your performance is very good, and your acting skills are amazing. But your audience can't arouse the slightest interest in your performance. Farewell. Photons floated, and a golden sword appeared in Dustless's hand. He stared at Archer, whose face was ashen, and waved his sword without hesitation. The light also penetrated Archer's body. Poochie. A conspicuous burn mark was left on Archer's body. Dustless ended Archer's life with a single slash. What a hateful man. After receiving Dustless's fatal attack, Archer's body glowed brightly and gradually lost its texture. He looked at Dustless, who was walking away indifferently. He spat out a mouthful of blood and finally disappeared. If we meet in the next Holy Grail War, I will not lose. Hearing this, Dustless paused for a moment. He then turned his head slightly and glanced at the place where Archer disappeared. He then started walking again. Idiot. This is the last Holy Grail War. After I help Seb regain his body, I will leave and destroy the Great Holy Grail under this city. At the same time, Rin and Osaka also felt Archer's disappearance and fell to the ground in a daze. Now, it's time to put all the blame on someone else. Dustless smiled faintly and walked straight to the place where Rin and Osaka was hiding. Dustless would never admit that he killed Archer. Otherwise, Rin would hate him for the rest of his life. This kind of scapegoat should be left to Yen Fengili, the great priest. He and Lancer would be the scapegoat together. Luckily, he used the evil of the world to revive. Otherwise, would not be able to find a suitable scapegoat. Despicable Ilya, how dare you kill my Archer? I will never let you go. Never. In the silent forest, the sound of a young girl sobbing could be heard. Looking closely, the young girl who was venting her anger under a withered tree was Rin and Osaka. Rin, why are you crying so sadly? Dustless did not understand. His voice was filled with confusion and he looked like he did not know what was going on. Archer was killed by that B*****starred Ilya. Ling punched the dead tree with his young and tender fist, then growled angrily, I will not let her go so easily. No, no, Dustless shook his finger and quibbled, you're wrong, Ling. The guy who killed Archer is actually Yen Fengili, that despicable and filthy villain. I saw it with my own eyes. Dustless was spouting nonsense and pushed all the blame to Yen Fengili. Yen Fengili. Impossible, he died 10 years ago. After being stunned for a moment, Rin and Osaka denied it loudly. Dustless, don't even think about covering up for that B*****starred Ilya. I will die together with her. It is a fact that Yen Fengili did not die. Don't forget that Wei Gong Kisi did not die either. Yen Fengili is the same. That guy bathed in the evil of the world, from the Holy Grail and revived again. Dustless didn't know how Yen Feng Chili managed to survive, but he didn't know what kind of miracle it was. Anyway, he could just make it up. After all, even Dustless, the person involved, didn't know the reason, let alone Rin Enbin, who didn't participate in the Fourth Holy Grail War. Even if he bathed in something like that, Yen Fengili would have been devoured. Rin and Osaka looked at Dustless suspiciously. Dustless's heart was pounding. Yen Fengili was immortal and it was impossible for him to survive after bathing in the evil of the world. The only one who could resist it was the hero King Gilgamesh. Yen Fengili's servant was the ancient king, Gilgamesh. Perhaps it was because of the former that the two of them signed a contract, causing something unbelievable to happen to Yen Fengili. Chapter 1754. Wu Qin stared at Ling fearlessly with his clear black eyes. Although the little girl was puzzled, as the saying goes, the eyes are the window to the heart. After Ling saw Wu Chen's magnanimous heart through his eyes, he finally nodded heavily. Yen Feng Chili. It's good that he's not dead. I'll take care of my father's revenge myself. Ling clenched his small fist and announced solemnly. He. Dustless laughed and stared at Ling Enbin silently. He was already mourning for Yen Feng Chili in his heart. You guys already have a feud with your father. It shouldn't matter if you guys kill Archer as well. Dustless thought. Yen Feng Chili was innocent. You two have guts. How dare you invade my territory? A pleasant voice suddenly sounded. There was a hint of undisguised coldness and teasing that was hard to hide. Turning his head, he saw a young girl whose appearance was very similar to Alice Field's. Her fair skin was perfect to the point of being impeccable, and her long white hair hung down to her waist just like Alice Fairfield. The young lady's entire body was filled with the aura of nobility. She was lively as she strolled over with a faint smile on her face. Of course, the feeling she gave others was not flattering, as if she was a cunning fox. Damn it, this little devil just had to come out at this time, Ling Enbin was secretly worried. She knew the girl's temper. They were old enemies, especially now that Archer was killed by Yen Feng Chili. She couldn't summon up her confidence to face the white-haired girl. Driven by instinct, Rin and Osaka couldn't help but hide behind Dustless. This was a real thaw. You only ask me for help at times like this, Ling. Turning his head to look speechlessly at the slightly fearful Ling, Dustless helplessly said, Ilya, I didn't come here rashly today to play Berserker. However, Ilya didn't give Dustless a chance to speak. Dustless, you are a heroic spirit left behind from the last Holy Grail War. Mother said that you are very strong, one of the strongest heroic spirits, but are you as strong as my Berserker? I'm very curious about this. The young girl revealed an innocent smile and looked at Dustless with a face full of curiosity. However, in the depths of her eyes, there was a tyrannical light. Clearly, she had other plans. You want to? Dustless's eyes narrowed. The light that shot out from his eyes was exceptionally ruthless. Ilya, do you want Berserker to test my strength? The result of this answer is very expensive. Dustless reminded him in a serious tone. It doesn't matter. In any case, Dustless is his enemy. Ilya stubbornly shook her head and earnestly said, Rest assured, I definitely won't let Berserker kill you. If that happens, Mother will definitely be sad. This guy, Dustless opened his mouth and felt a headache. At this moment, Rin and Osaka's gloating voice suddenly sounded. Can you still bear it? Hurry up and kill that big Berserker. Don't make me look down on you, Dustless. I'm also very curious about the strength of the strongest heroic spirit. On Dustless's left, Rin and Osaka pulled the corner of Dustless's clothes and whispered, I know Ilya's personality. If the two of us are captured alive, this little devil will definitely do some crazy things. Ling, that's because he did something crazy to you, right? Dustless rolled his eyes. This little girl even wanted to trick him. The relationship between Ilya and Rin and Osaka was extremely bad. It was as if both of them had eaten gunpowder. As soon as they met, they would mock each other. Now that Rin and Osaka knew that his archer was destroyed, he could only hug Dustless's thick leg to shelter himself from the wind and rain. That's not important. Anyway, Berserker wants to test your strength. If you give up, at most, we will be captured and tortured together. If there is a companion, I can also accept this cruel reality. Rin and Osaka waved his hand and said in a very straightforward manner. Are you two done whispering? Then, become my toy now. Ilya glanced at Berserker's huge body, and the latter slowly walked over. His huge body gave off an extremely oppressive feeling, and when he walked, the ground trembled. Since you have chosen to make a move, then don't blame me for being ruthless. With a vicious expression, Dustless stared at the incoming Berserker. On the surface, he looked like he was in a difficult position, but in his heart, he was overjoyed. Anyway, his final goal was to kill all the heroic spirits. This was also a good opportunity to kill Berserker. This was Ilya's own humiliation. Boom! 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 Under Ilya's command, Berserker waved his mace and attacked with extreme speed. Because his body was too huge, the ground shook slightly when he ran. Humph, as expected of Berserker. Although his strength is great, there are still many flaws. Calmly looking at Berserker's powerful body, Dustless opened his mouth slightly and muttered with his eyes closed. Dow Breakers 90, Black Coffin. Swish. 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 A large number of black blades fell from the sky. At a glance, there were no less than 10 blades. Roar! 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 Berserker also noticed the existence of the blades. He immediately swung his battle axe towards the sky. Chapter 1755. It's useless, big guy. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. Although Berserker was one of the best heroic spirits, he wasn't very lucky at the moment. He had chosen the wrong opponent this time. Swish! 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 Berserker raised his battle axe, but he did not manage to hit the incoming black light. The light seemed to be endowed with intelligence, as it inconceivably turned to avoid the incoming battle axe. Poochie! 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 In the blink of an eye, all of the Black Coffin's attacks landed on Berserker's torso, leaving behind a ghastly blood-red blade on his huge body. Several wounds were lacerated and his flesh was badly mangled. Berserker, so strong! Rin and Osaka and Ilya exclaimed in shock as they tensed up at the same time. This guy used one move to kill a super monster like Berserker. Rin and Osaka's breathing became heavier. He did not expect Dustless to be so terrifying. It was as simple and boring as an adult bullying a child. The bloody scene was straightforward. I haven't killed this guy yet. Berserker's noble artifact is the 12 trials that he passed. If I want to kill him completely, I have to kill him 12 times. Dustless shook his head. To kill a person 12 times, Berserker was the first person that Dustless encountered. You have to kill him 12 times. Rin and Osaka pursed his lips as he stared at Berserker. It was already difficult to kill such a super monster once, let alone 12 times. This guy, Ilya stared at Dustless as she bit her tongue and said word by word, "I didn't expect you to be so strong. I suddenly regret it." Regret? Rin Anosaka was stunned when he heard that. His gaze was fixed on Ilya's delicate face as he broke out in cold sweat. Even though he hid his nervousness well, it was still obvious. I. Don't be nervous. I only killed him 5 times in one go. There are still 7 lives left. Dustless said casually. Dustless, this guy. Did he kill Berserker 5 times with that move? This hateful evildoer, Ilya has met her natural enemy this time and kicked an iron plate. Rin Anosaka's beautiful eyes widened when she heard this. Looking at the 5 bloody wounds on Berserker's body, she finally understood why Ilya regretted it. They only had 12 lives in total, and they had been wiped out 5 times by Dustless. What would happen if he used that move called Black Coffin a few more times? Hee. Serves you right. You've spun a cocoon around yourself. Rin Enbin laughed heartily, not caring about his image at all. Ling, you're getting a little carried away. Even if I can't beat this guy, I can still easily deal with you. Ilya glared at Rin Enbin with displeasure. She put her hands on her hips and shouted, Berserker, grab Rin for me. I'm going to teach him a lesson. Ayo. Hearing this, Berserker immediately turned his gun. After roaring at the sky, his huge and sturdy body directly attacked the dumbfounded Rin Enbin. Do you need to be this shameless? I already quit this Holy Grail war. Seeing the ferocious Berserker, Rin Enbin immediately panicked. Seeing the black battle axe in Berserker's hand, she suddenly felt the shadow of death. When she had Archer, she was not this guy's opponent. Now that she was empty-handed, she was definitely not Berserker's opponent. Right. Glancing at Dustless, Rin Enbin decisively hugged Dustless's right arm. She specifically asked for you. Dustless looked at Rin Enbin with a teasing gaze and teased, it's not bad to be Ilya's maid for a few days. Anyway, she won't make things difficult for you. Won't make things difficult for me. It's easy for you to say that. Rin Enbin angrily interrupted Dustless and yelled, I'll be tortured to death by that little devil. What a troublesome little girl. Dustless shook his head, then looked at Berserker's head and said softly, she already said that she doesn't want to follow your master, so, please step aside. Focusing on Berserker's body, Dustless's forehead suddenly had some special red symbols. What's going on? Although she didn't know what happened to Dustless, Rin Enbin, who was hiding behind him, clearly felt it. Dustless's body was exploding with some kind of unexpected power. Immortal spell. Dustless suddenly raised his right arm. After glancing at Berserker who jumped into the air and the huge battle axe that fell down, Dustless smiled faintly. Bright God Gate. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The originally calm sky immediately turned into countless sharp roars, and the sky was suddenly covered by pitch-black shadows. This is... Looking up at the sky, Rin Enbin and Ilya were stunned. In the depths of the void, large amounts of red would appear without any warning, and there were so many of them that they covered the sky. Boom boom boom. Berserker, who was targeted by thousands of bright god gates, instantly suffered a tragic fate. He was mercilessly suppressed, and his sturdy body was smashed into a bloody mess. Bits of flesh mixed with bone fragments splashed all over the ground. Chapter 1756. Berserker continued to roar. His hysterical roar echoed through the sky. Unlike his previous high-spirited appearance, this roar was filled with endless despair and pain. Boom! 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 Being attacked from all sides by immortal spell, bright god gate, dust rose from the ground. It was as if they were on a trampoline. Ling and the others had difficulty maintaining their bodies. He took care of Berserker just like that. Did he have to be so fast? Ling and Osaka was extremely conflicted. Her expression was indescribably strange. She had expected Dustless to defeat Berserker, but this speed was too. Ling. Dustless's gaze landed on Ling and Osaka's head. His eyes glinted as he guessed, "You actually wish that guy would beat me up, right?" "That's right. Who asked you to be so hateful?" Ling said without thinking. Ling felt uncomfortable when she recalled her mother's painful moans in the middle of the night. She hoped that Berserker would teach Dustless a lesson and strike a blow to his unbridled arrogance. That was a slip of the tongue. Ling and Osaka, who came back to her senses, quickly denied it. She shook her head violently as if she didn't say anything and it was all a misunderstanding. "It's okay." Dustless looked at Ling and Osaka with magnanimity, but he was laughing in his heart. "What's wrong with that? You are Kuei and Osaka's daughter. I will take revenge on your mother even more fiercely in the future. Speaking of which, Berserker is dead." Ling and Osaka's eyes glowed. If Berserker was dead, she was confident that she could suppress Ilya. "Ling, you better put away your little thoughts. I won't turn a blind eye to you making a move against Ilya." Wu Chen gave Ling a warning glance. A basin of cold water was poured over her, and her excited mood was completely extinguished. Then, he explained, "Don't underestimate Berserker. His true identity is Hercules, the son of Zeus. He is a powerful hero who once saved a mythological system. He is not as weak as you think." "Zeus? He has something to do with Zeus?" Ling's face flashed with surprise. She didn't expect Berserker to have such a powerful background. Then, she nodded and said, "No wonder this guy is so strong. He is the son of Zeus and Alcmene." Dustless continued, then said with contempt, "But so what? He is just a stray dog." "Now that," Dustless answered coldly. Everything that happened in his life was not important. Now, Hercules was just a loser waiting to be slaughtered. Boom! The divine bright gates attacked to the ground. Berserker, being Berserker, who was attacked by the bright gate, who was attacked, with Berserker, who was being attacked by the bright divine gate. He was and Berserker. Was Berserker with. This guy's vitality is ridiculously strong, Dustless said to himself. If it was a normal human, they would have disappeared without a trace. Berserker was still able to hold on. He didn't disgrace his identity as the son of Zeus. Dustless, look. Berserker's body is starting to heal again. Rin Farban's nervous voice disturbed Dustless, who was deep in thought. Dustless raised his head slightly, and a faint ripple immediately appeared in his calm eyes. Just as Rin Enbin said, Berserker was starting to heal himself again. The divine bright gate didn't hit him completely. It only ended his life 6 times. Including the previous 5 times, it is 11 times. This is his last life. Do you want to continue, Ilya? Dustless looked at Ilya, who was a little flustered, and asked calmly. I believe in Berserker. Ilya said confidently. What's more, the meaning of Berserker's existence is to fight. If he doesn't even fight, is there a need for him to live? Ah. That's true. Dustless nodded after hearing that. He looked at Ilya in surprise. He didn't expect her to have such a unique view. It was exactly the same as what Ilya had said. The meaning of the heroic spirit's existence was to fight. Even if they died and disappeared, they were aware that this was an unavoidable fate. No matter what, you are still the son of Zeus. Show some of your true strength and let you die a worthy death, Yatsubai Ryasaka. Suddenly, the scarlet Rinnegan Sharingan flashed on his forehead, and the space in front of him exploded in an instant, and a dark mysterious space appeared. What is this? Rin Anbin and Ilya were puzzled. Looking at the scarlet eye between Dustless's eyebrows, their hearts trembled. Disappear in peace. Let's kill Grey Bone together. Dustless raised his right hand, and a rough bone sword suddenly appeared in his palm. Then, his right arm went into the dark mysterious space. Crack! Crack! At the same time, the void in front of Berserker shattered without any warning. Then, a bone blade that shone with a cold light swept out and slashed Berserker's throat in a split second, cutting through his body. Being attacked by "Let's kill Grey Bone together," the final result could be imagined. Berserker's body floated away, and his body gradually peeled off. Among all the heroic spirits, you are the only one who enjoys this honor. You are the only one who was killed by the Sharingan. You can rest in peace in the underworld. Chapter 1757. Crack! 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 Berserker's body rapidly collapsed and disappeared like fragments being blown away by the wind. At the same time, Berserker's scarlet eyes regained their clarity. Did he remove his berserk state? Dustless softly muttered to himself. His gaze focused on Berserker's body and discovered that the violent killing intent that seeped out of his body also disappeared as his consciousness awakened. Those scarlet eyes were now replaced by deep black eyes. You're very strong. Berserker, whose consciousness returned, spoke with a hoarse voice. You even give me the feeling that you're stronger than father. You don't seem to be a god from a certain mythological system. Stronger than father. Ilya and Rin and Osaka felt dizzy hearing this. Who is Berserker's father? Previously, he said that he is the son of Zeus, so it goes without saying who his father is. This guy can't even defeat Zeus. What a joke. Zeus is a god, and not an ordinary god. In the entire Greek mythological system, Zeus can be considered the strongest existence. Ilya and Rin and Osaka felt as if they were struck by lightning. They were dumbfounded and looked at Dustless in a daze. Do you two need to be so exaggerated? Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was embarrassed by Rin and Ilya's shocked gazes and rubbed his nose shyly. At this moment, the two women were staring at him with dumbfounded gazes. Dustless felt bitter. Not to mention where Zeus was, even if he appeared, Dustless was confident in suppressing him. This was nothing to be shocked about. After all, countless gods had died in his hands. Farewell, Berserker. A few seconds later, Berserker completely disappeared. Dustless didn't reveal his identity. A guest from outer space didn't have any identity to reveal. Time flew by, and it was night in the blink of an eye. Dustless, Rin and Osaka, and Ilya all returned to the Ahrensburg family's castle. Now that Ilya had removed her master status, she was much more relaxed. Everyone gathered together for dinner at night. The atmosphere was quite pleasant. Alice Phil was especially excited when she saw Ilya appear. Although Ling and Ilya were full of contradictions, with Dustless suppressing them, no major disaster broke out between them. Our next targets are Lancer and Satyr. After killing those two, we should be able to summon the Holy Grail. But other than that, there's still a big problem. The carrier of the Holy Grail. In the dark room, Dustless looked through the window at the bright stars in the sky, unable to calm down for a long time. The carrier of the Holy Grail was Ilya. It was obviously impossible for Dustless to use her as a vessel for the evil of this world. Then, oh, right, Dustless's eyes shone with a strange light as he muttered, it seems like the Ahrensburg family has other man-made dolls. They should be able to be the carrier of the Holy Grail. Dustless, who are you scheming against this time? A warm voice came from behind. Then, Dustless found himself being hugged by soft arms. Turning his head, he saw Saber in her pajamas. Really, why do you always think of me as such a dark person? I'm not that guy Waygong Kissy. Dustless rolled his eyes and looked at Saber in annoyance. At the same time, he scratched her nose. You should know about the carrier of the Holy Grail, right? The carrier of this Holy Grail war is Ilya. You want me to use that little girl as the Holy Grail? I can't do it. Dustless was not like Waygong Kissy. In order to satisfy his own ambitions, he could sacrifice others. He really couldn't do such a thing, especially sacrificing someone close to him like Ilya. He would rather not have the Holy Grail. Is that so? Isn't that great? Saber smiled. She was really afraid that Dustless would kill Ilya and use her as the Holy Grail. I heard that the Arinsberlin family has other man-made dolls. Tomorrow, I'll ask Rin if she can replace Ilya. She is better at this kind of problem than I am. In this magic castle, the person with the richest magic knowledge was Rin Farban. Who is the next target? Leave it to me. Although you are also very strong, I'm always your Sarvat. You can't just stay at home and not do anything, right? Saber's watery eyes stared at Dustless without blinking, full of expectations. The next target, let's choose Castor. Dustless's voice was as cold as ice. The red light that emerged from his eyes was full of coldness. Castor. Do you know his whereabouts? Saber asked. You don't seem to have investigated Castor's whereabouts. Not only Castor, but also the other heroic spirits. She was surprised. He hid at home all day long and didn't seem to have any other activities, but the most strange thing was that even if he hid at home and lived a decadent life, he was still very sensitive to the overall situation. The slightest movement couldn't be hidden from his eyes. Go and guess. Seeing the puzzled Saber, Dustless was secretly proud. This was the advantage of being a transmigrator. Even if he was sitting at home, everyone's changes couldn't escape his prediction, and the information he had was 100% accurate. Chapter 1758. Dustless, sigh, he always likes to be mysterious. Saber sighed in her heart, and her exquisite and clear eyes rolled her eyes. She was rather jealous and uncomfortable with Wu Chen's concealment. No matter what, they were on the same side, and they should be honest with each other. Do whatever you want. But next time, you have to bring me with you when you fight against other servants. Saber repeated solemnly as she stared at Dustless. Even though she did not have to do it herself to defeat the enemy, and Dustless, as the master, could easily defeat all the enemies on his own, Saber still felt that she was being underestimated by Dustless. After all, she was Dustless's sword. It was as if their roles had been switched. Sarvant was meant to be used for battle. If she had to rely on Dustless's protection for everything, Saber would feel ashamed, especially since she was the Night King. It would be a joke if she was protected by someone else. Speaking of which, you don't have a problem with your magic, do you? Dustless suddenly changed the topic. He frowned and said, You know that I'm not a magician like Ling. I can't provide you with magic. You idiot. Why do you have to worry about this? You already told me how to obtain magic last time. Saber's face was slightly red. She opened her mouth and said, Have you forgotten? As if it was something difficult to say, Saber closed her mouth again. She stared at Dustless with her lustful eyes. Saber, who had always been carefree, was now acting shy. She's blushing. Dustless was shocked. The number of times Saber blushed could be counted on one hand. Usually, when she blushed, I get it. Dustless's eyes lit up. He slapped his forehead and said without hesitation, You're trying to say that I can replenish my magic if I run out of magic, right? Am I right, Saber? Yug, Saber's pretty face immediately turned red when she heard that. She looked at Wu Chen with a panicked expression. Then, she glared at him fiercely and cursed in her heart, how shameless is this guy. It's enough that he knows it in his heart. Why did he have to say it out loud so shamelessly? Hee, seeing this, Dustless laughed evilly. His wolfish eyes scanned Saber's beautiful body. Silence was a tacit agreement. TSK, I'm going to take advantage of you. As Saber was wearing pajamas, the pure white color was almost transparent. In addition, Wu Qin had good eyesight, so, some parts of her body were as clear as if she was not wearing any clothes. Then go replenish your magic, Saber. This is a big deal. If you run out of magic, I'll be very troubled. A lack of magic will also cause your combat power to decrease. You won't be able to complete the mission that I've given you. After saying that, Dustless carried Saber to bed. Even though she was struggling very hard, her weak strength did not affect Dustless at all. After a night of silence, it was already the next day. Dustless crawled out of bed feeling refreshed. Dustless lazily walked to the balcony and looked at the cloudless sky. He stretched lazily. The bright sun shone down from the 9 heavens, and everything was flourishing. Dustless was having a good time last night. On the other hand, Saber was almost passed out. 2 hours later, it was almost 10 o'clock. Saber and Ling will temporarily go to the Ahrensburg family to ask for a new holy grail that contains the evil in the world. If they take the initiative to ask for it, it's fine if they don't have it. But if they have it and they hide it secretly. I don't think I need to tell you what to do, right? Taking advantage of the short time when everyone was eating breakfast together, Dustless said while eating, as for the others, if there's nothing important, don't go out casually. I have a feeling that the Holy Grail War will come to an end in the next few days. Especially you. Without my permission, you're not allowed to go out. Dustless deliberately put on a stern face and looked at Ilya seriously. Among the few of them, this girl was the most active and disobedient. She often relied on Alice Field's pampering to go against Dustless. I won't listen to you. Just as Dustless expected, Ilya only made a face at Dustless and then completely ignored him. She jumped into Alice Field's arms and acted cute, scolding Dustless. What are you doing? Ling Anbin crossed his legs, took a sip of black tea, showed a satisfied look, and asked, hiding at home and basking in the sun leisurely. Exactly. I'm responsible for protecting the safety of my family. Wu Qin nodded calmly and righteously. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. His tone was as if he was thinking for everyone, but his lazy look gave people a feeling that he was slacking off in the midst of a busy day and taking advantage of his position for personal gain. All in all, everyone just acts according to my plan. As for the problem with Castor and Lancer, Dustless temporarily turned a blind eye to it. Even if he didn't take the initiative to attack, he believed that Castor and Lancer would take the initiative to attack first. Ling, Saber, the two of you must be careful. The remaining enemies will be driven to desperation. Even though Sarvant doesn't care to do some despicable acts, their master might use the command curse to give orders directly. Wu Qin stared at the two women. Her bright eyes flickered with a strange light. Understood. Saber and Ling Enbin looked at each other, they could also see the confusion in each other's eyes. They immediately nodded without a trace. They always felt that Dustless's words had a hidden meaning, so they secretly raised their guard. Chapter 1759. Everyone noticed Dustless's abnormality, and everyone was puzzled. They all looked at his calm and deep face, and seeing that Dustless didn't intend to explain in detail, they all lowered their heads in silence and chose to ignore him. No matter what happened, all the girls knew that Dustless wouldn't harm them. This was publicly acknowledged. Time flew by, and unknowingly, a few hours had passed. Saber and Ling also left quietly. During this time, Ilya, who was extremely bored, pestered Dustless, asking him to bring her out to play. In your next life. Dustless heartlessly rejected Ilya. There was no room for discussion. If he took Ilya out, what would happen to Rin and Osaka, Tama Tanjin, and her mother, Alice Field? If the enemy took advantage of Dustless sneaking out to play to launch a sneak attack, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, Ilya wasn't an incompetent person. She quickly used her trump card, acting coquettishly. Although Dustless had a heart of stone and rejected Ilya's suggestion without any trace of politeness, her mother, Alice Field, couldn't be as ruthless as Dustless to refuse. Every mother was benevolent and great. In the end, she couldn't stand Ilya's coquettish and cute attacks and threw away her armor to surrender. Ilya encouraged Alice Field to beg Dustless. It's indeed a bad thing for a person to be too educated and reasonable. Looking at the several figures behind him, Dustless finally bowed down to Alice Field and agreed to take Ilya out to play. Considering the safety of Osaka, Tama Tanjin, and the others, it was fortunate that Dustless brought everyone out together in the end. If he wasn't at home, it would be more dangerous for Alice Field and the others to stay in the castle. Since that was the case, it was better for everyone to go out and play together. During this period of time, a large amount of time was spent dealing with other heroic spirits, so it was good to relax appropriately. Buy that for me, I want to eat that, quickly go there to play, I want that. On the bustling street, Ilya was jumping around like a fairy, and Dustless was tailing her like a shadow. Behind Dustless were Alice Phil, Kue and Osaka, and Tosakura and Nakamura. Compared to the lively Ilya, Xiaoying was much more restrained. Time flew by quickly. As they strolled around, it was already close to afternoon. Dustless had thought that it would be a rare relaxing day, but after witnessing the nature of women who loved shopping, Dustless realized that he was gravely mistaken. Dustless had been wandering around with Alice, Phil, and the others for the whole afternoon. He really felt that sometimes, women were more difficult to deal with than godlike opponents. At the Central Park of Dongmu City. After walking around for an entire day, the girls finally felt tired. During this period, they bought a large number of daily necessities, which were all temporarily stored in Dustless's Divine Might dimension. If Uchiha Obito knew that Dustless used his Kamui to store the gift, he would most likely rush out of hell to settle accounts with Dustless. This day is really fulfilling. Alice Phil was lying on a park bench comfortably with her head resting on Dustless's legs. She was holding an ice cream in her hand, and her eyes were squinted into a crescent moon. It was not difficult to see that she had a very comfortable and happy day. You guys are comfortable, but Dustless's expression was quite gloomy. Alice Phil and the others seemed to be doing it on purpose. During this period, they also went to a women's underwear shop and a bikini swimwear shop. Dustless naturally followed them for safety reasons. It was inevitable that he would be pointed at and treated as a pervert by others. Dustless, my stomach is not feeling well. Hurry up and accompany me to the bathroom. Ilya suddenly jumped in front of Dustless with a sad expression. Your stomach is not feeling well. Ilya, you deserve it. You ate the ice cream of 5 or 6 people by yourself. You asked for it. Remember not to be greedy in the future. Dustless reprimanded loudly. Even so, he still pulled Ilya in the direction of the open beta. I didn't expect that I would fall to this point one day, being a guard in the bathroom for a kid. Dustless looked at the women's restroom not far away, about 5 or 6 meters away, and sighed with his head down. Look at this shameless guy, he actually shamelessly broke into the women's restroom. When Dustless was admiring himself, a shrill scream suddenly sounded in the quiet women's restroom. There are so many perverts these days. Hearing the scream of panic, Dustless sighed at the hypocrisy of the world. At the same time, a very destructive energy fluctuation invaded his detection nerves. Under the full release of observation hockey, the mysterious power fluctuation was particularly clear. Is this magic power? I knew that it would attract the attention of other heroic spirits sooner or later. Without thinking about it, Dustless directly broke into the women's restroom. When he arrived, there was no one in the women's restroom. There was only a heroic spirit with a gun and a pale face. Yo, Lancer, I didn't expect it to be you. You don't look so good. But then again, I didn't expect you to have such a strong taste. You dare to openly invade the women's restroom. Seeing Lancer's constipated expression, Dustless joked in surprise. Shut up, you bastard. Hearing Dustless's ridicule, Lancer's face turned green, and thick red veins even appeared on his forehead. He hated his master to death in his heart. Damn Yen Feng, he dared to use command curse to order me to catch that kid. How dare he? Lancer vomited blood, and he was so angry that he jumped and trembled. If it was in other places, it would be fine, but in the current situation. Especially when Master Yen Feng used an irresistible killing weapon like command curse, Lancer couldn't disobey the order at all. Let alone a women's restroom, even if it was a cesspool, he must jump in. You idiot, you're about to die. Don't you know that you've been used by others? Seeing Lancer's resentful expression, Dustless secretly sighed that it was ridiculous. The so-called hero spirit was actually being used as a chess piece by others. Chapter 1760. In the original work, Dustless felt that Lancer wasn't smart enough. As a heroic spirit, he was fooled by the cynical Yen Feng Chili. It was truly embarrassing. You better give me a reasonable explanation, or else. Lancer's eyes narrowed into a line, emitting a very dangerous glow. Or else what? Kill me. This kind of thing can only be realized in dreams. It's too difficult for you to kill me in broad daylight. Dustless really couldn't be bothered to attack Lancer, but this fellow insisted on courting death. He didn't understand where he got the right to be arrogant. Although the hero King Gilgamesh liked to court death, it was undeniable that not only was he smart, but he was also powerful. He was also the most ancient king, and his data in all aspects could be said to be perfect. But what was this Lancer in front of him? Although his background wasn't bad, he was just a small character. He was weak, and his tone was extremely arrogant. He was also very stupid, and he still hadn't realized that Yen Feng Chili was lying to him. What mission did Yen Feng Chili give you? Dustless asked curiously. Capture Ilya. That's right. Pointing at Ilya, who was curled up behind Dustless, a murderous intent and doubt flashed across Lancer's face. I really don't understand why that fellow needs a little brat, especially for this little brat. He actually dared to ask me to attack the ladies' room. Damn it, Yen Feng Chili better never use up the command curse, or I'll definitely kill him immediately. Lancer cursed, hating Yen Feng Chili to death. He was probably the first heroic spirit in human history to be ordered by Master to attack the ladies' room. It's not wrong to say that you are stupid. Lancer, do you still not understand why Yen Feng Chili is targeting Ilya? Dustless asked calmly. If I knew the secret, I wouldn't be here listening to your nonsense. Perhaps you would have already reincarnated by now. Lancer mocked Dustless coldly. This brat. I'll see if you can continue to be arrogant later. Dustless sneered in his heart before clearing his throat. Ilya is the carrier of the Holy Grail, the tool. The carrier of the Holy Grail. Lancer was stunned. He had a blank expression on his face. He did not know what Dustless was talking about. I believe you also know the method to revive the Holy Grail, right? Dustless asked calmly. Nonsense, do you think I'm an idiot? I definitely understand such basic things. With a glare, Lancer shouted loudly. Dustless's tone was full of different meanings, as if he was treating himself as a fool. You are an idiot. Dustless didn't care about Lancer's twitching face at all. He mocked, once you successfully snatch Ilya away, the Holy Grail summoning ritual will be completed. Nonsense. Lancer shook his head violently and doubted Dustless with a firm voice. Only the final victor can obtain the Holy Grail. This battle hasn't ended yet. Including me, Sastre who has yet to be eliminated, and your saber, there are 3 heroic spirits in total. The victor hasn't been decided yet. Lancer said bluntly, are you trying to tell me that the Holy Grail can be summoned when there are only 3 heroic spirits left? Forgive me for being blunt, but this kind of boring joke has no highlights at all. When did I say that the Holy Grail can be summoned when there are only 3 heroic spirits left? Lancer, it's really a waste of energy to talk to a simple-minded but well-developed person like you. Dustless didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. The conditions to activate the Holy Grail are extremely harsh. It requires the sacrifice of 7 heroic spirit souls. Do you understand what this means? 7 souls. That's not right. Lancer was stunned when he heard that. He asked in confusion, there are only 6 heroic spirits in this Holy Grail war. Where are we going to get 7 souls? Your reaction is really slow. If you include yourself, isn't that 7 souls? Dustless sneered loudly. No matter what, you're going to die for sure. In other words, even if I help Yen Fengili obtain victory, that fellow will still kill me in the end. Lancer's expression gradually turned ugly with an indignant expression. Well. Don't be so agitated. The 7 souls that I told you just now is the maximum that can be used to revive the Holy Grail. Actually, you can cut corners a little. 7 souls can be reduced to 5. In the original work, when Gold Sparkle and Saber were still alive, Yen Fengili had already summoned the Holy Grail. 5 souls can also revive the Holy Grail. Lancer raised his voice with great surprise. He didn't expect the Holy Grail to have so many unknown secrets. Actually, I saved your life just now. You should thank me, Lancer, Dustless suddenly said out of the blue. Thank you. Lancer's face immediately darkened. He said coldly, thank you for destroying my plan. I can't wait to drill a hole in your head to vent my anger. A vulgar person who doesn't know etiquette. Dustless sighed deeply and explained quietly, although you look like a human, your thoughts are like a pig's. 4 heroic spirits have already died. If you capture Ilya and bring her back to Yen Fengili, he can make the Holy Grail appear. You're really funny. Just now, you said that only 5 souls can revive the Holy Grail. Now, it's become the souls of 4 heroic spirits. Your words don't add up. Lancer laughed loudly. Just when he was about to ruthlessly humiliate Dustless, he suddenly thought of something and shuddered. Blockhead, you're finally enlightened. After you bring Ilya back, Yen Fengili will use the command curse to make you commit suicide. Together with the souls of the 4 heroic spirits from before, we have exactly 5 souls. Chapter 1761. Lancer's face was livid. He wanted to deny Dustless's point of view and thought that it was just a ridiculous strategy to sow discord. However, after thinking about Dustless's character, Lancer felt that it was not an exaggeration. Yen Fengili's master was untrustworthy. Lancer understood this without needing Dustless to sow discord. You don't have to worry. Since I'm going to die here soon, I'm telling you the truth so that you can die without regrets. Light flashed in his right hand, and a golden sword appeared. The ability to control light. Lancer raised his eyebrows slightly and then relaxed. He also held his noble artifact to guard against Dustless. I think I can understand it this way. As long as I die here, you can use that little girl to awaken the Holy Grail. Use? Don't think of me as despicable as Yen Feng Chili. Dustless shook his finger and pointed at Elia. Elia is a tool for the Holy Grail, but I don't plan to sacrifice her. The Arinsbaron family made many puppets to carry the Holy Grail. If I'm not wrong, the Arinsbaron family still has a lot in stock. I see. Lancer looked around and said, no wonder I didn't see your saber. She must have been sent by you to destroy the Einsteinsbaron family. You're right. As a reward, I'll give you. Dustless's eyes turned cold. He shot out instantly. Almost in the blink of an eye, the golden blade swept out. Go to heaven. This guy's speed. Lancer's pupils suddenly froze when he saw the incoming light. He instinctively blocked the spear above his head. Boom, boom, boom. The force of the fall was too strong. The golden sword hit Lancer's weapon with full force. The ground under his feet couldn't withstand the force and collapsed. Caw, caw, caw. Lancer's feet sank into the ground. His arms were also bent down from the pressure. Damn it. Why is this guy so strong? Lancer cursed in his heart. His arms almost collapsed. Dustless's explosive power made Lancer feel as if he had been hit by a huge mountain. It's very difficult. Looking down at the sweaty Lancer, Dustless took the initiative to put some distance between him and Lancer. Then, a large amount of golden light condensed in his right hand, and he threw it out without hesitation. Yasekani no Magatama. Swish. Swish. A huge amount of light bullets flew toward them, almost occupying the entire sky. Amazing. Ilya's eyes glowed as she excitedly stared at Dustless. If it weren't for Lancer's presence, she would have pounced into Dustless's embrace and acted coquettishly. This guy. Dustless naturally noticed Ilya's blazing gaze, but he didn't feel that it was something worth rejoicing over. Ilya just wanted him to be her hired thug. No way. Damned pervert. Looking at the boundless light bullets, Lancer flew into a rage. His eyes were filled with fear. He shifted his body and decisively fled in another direction. But after a few sonic booms, Lancer quickly realized that he was gravely mistaken. Swish. 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 A huge amount of light bullets sealed the entire space. Escaping had completely lost its meaning. No matter where he hid, he couldn't escape the attack of the light bullets. There were too many of them. I'll fight it out with you. Realizing that he couldn't escape, Lancer clenched his teeth and decisively brandished his crimson spear. Clang! 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 Lancer's strength might not be as terrifying as Dustless's, but his attainments in wielding the spear were extraordinary. Some of the light bullets were shattered by the tip of his spear. But even so, it was only treating the symptoms and not the root cause. It was impossible to completely resolve the problem at hand. Poochie. 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 After persisting for a few seconds, Lancer's body was penetrated by the light beam, leaving scorched holes all over his strong body. Puff! After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Lancer, who was physically exhausted, fell to the ground. His face showed an unprecedented look of exhaustion. Ayaya, is it over just like that? How long has it been? It seems that you didn't even persist for one move. I was expecting you to persist for a while. It's really disappointing. Lancer, I still have a lot of good things to show you. Dustless sighed and walked over. Looking at Lancer, who was covered with bruises on the ground, he sighed and said, You came here with great interest, but your heart is waning. Your performance is really disappointing. Your vicious mouth can't even let go of a person who is about to disappear. Lancer said weakly. Looking up at Dustless, his heart thumped. He didn't know when Dustless had changed his eyes. The scarlet Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan exuded a demonic brilliance. Being glanced at by those evil eyes, Lancer felt a chill in his heart. You don't have to show such a nervous look. You are not qualified for me to use dojutsu. Dustless said mercilessly while staring at the wounds all over Lancer's body. He couldn't help but frown. Although there were dozens of gaps, and Lancer's whole body was in a terrible state, but through the unique vision of the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Dustless found that these wounds were not so fatal. Chapter 1762. Although many parts of Lancer's body were pierced through, as a hero spirit, he shouldn't be in such a sorry state. There are many wounds, but none of them are fatal. Dustless focused on Lancer, who was lying on the ground. He was troubled. Normally, as long as the wounds were not fatal, a hero spirit could continue to fight until they died. In the original book, when Saber and Gilgamesh fought in the final battle, Saber's injuries were far more serious than Lancer's. However, she was still as powerful as ever. Perhaps Lancer was not as good as Saber, but Lancer's performance was too weak. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. At that moment, there was a sudden swoosh 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 sound in front of him. It was very cold and frightening, like the hiss of a snake. It sounded very depressing and scary. When he raised his head to look, what entered his eyes was a deadly sharpness. Poochie. Wuchen suddenly felt a pain in his chest. He subconsciously looked over. It was a blood-red spear that had pierced through his body. Moreover, it had destroyed his heart in an extremely powerful manner. His blood continued to flow like a stream. Ha 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 ha, mad laughter spread. Lancer, who looked ferocious, stood up stubbornly again. It's just as I guessed. You pretended to be dead so that I could get close to you. Dustless's tone was calm, and he did not even blink. Anyone would let down their guard when facing someone who was about to die. This guy. Is his body made of iron? His heart was destroyed, but he can still move around safely. Lancer's arrogant laughter stopped abruptly. He stared at Dustless cautiously and thought to himself, I destroyed his heart, but why doesn't this guy look worried at all? Could it be that he has a relic that can restrain me? Or does he have the ability to heal himself? Impossible, Lancer shook his head stubbornly. He was stabbed by his relic, and it was an important organ like his heart. There was no other choice but to die. You're a little different from the rumors. I remember in Northern Ireland's mythology, you're very brave and brave. Now, you're playing dead to plot against others. Dustless sneered with the corner of his mouth slightly raised. When dealing with despicable people, you don't have to rely solely on your means. Lancer replied disapprovingly. Being open and above board also depended on the opponent. If the enemy was a despicable person, wouldn't it be idiotic to use the same open and above-board methods as before? As time went by, Lancer soon realized that something was wrong. Dustless was as immovable as a rock. His body was as straight as a javelin, and he was not affected by the amount of HP he had left. You don't have to force yourself. No matter who you are, be it a heroic spirit or a human, once your heart is pierced, you will definitely die. Lancer snorted coldly and looked over. He was sure that Dustless's heart had been destroyed. Really? I may be that special case. Dustless, who was standing calmly, suddenly had a strange red light flash across his cheeks. Then, he exerted a little force, and the bloody wound on his chest was almost instantly healed under Lancer's shocked gaze. It was as fast as the blink of an eye. Your plan is just to humiliate yourself, Lancer. Actually, I've already noticed your problem, so I purposely exposed a flaw for you to attack. Actually, I wanted to see what kind of tricks you would use to attack me. I was looking forward to it, but your performance. It's as boring as the battle just now. There was a dazzling light in the air, and countless heavenly weapons swarmed out. Tear him apart. With a wave of his hand, the thousands of weapons that Dustless controlled shot out at the same time towards Lancer's head and abdomen. Poochie! 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 There was a large amount of blood on the ground, and it kept dripping from Lancer's body. There were more than 10 deadly weapons in his abdomen, and each of them was extremely dangerous and sharp. They had completely destroyed Lancer's life force. Dustless even used Lancer's noble phantasm to crush his heart. Inside the gate of Babylon, there were prototypes of great hero noble phantasms, such as Saber's Sword of the King, the Excalibur. Lancer's noble phantasm also had prototypes in the gate of Babylon. I'll give you a taste of your own medicine. You pierced my heart, so I'll use your weapon to pierce your heart. Everyone should return the favor to show respect. Can you still continue to pretend to be dead? Lancer. Lord Wuchen came down and teased, if you had been lying on your stomach just now, you might still be able to survive. I don't understand why you suddenly stood up and attacked me, and even let out a burst of silly laughter. Has your head been squashed by the door? Woo 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 woo. Lancer opened his mouth to refute, but the voice that came out of his throat was not pleasant. His throat had been torn apart by a weapon like the Gate of Babylon, so he could not continue to speak like a normal person. I'll send you to a pleasant death. With a gentle flick of his finger, a weak but destructive light landed on Lancer's body. Void flash. Boom boom boom. At the end of the explosion, after a dazzling light, Lancer was annihilated, and there was only a scorched pit left on the ground. Damn it, you're as unpredictable as before. We need to plan further, Gilgamesh. Chapter 1763. In the distance, a middle-aged man dressed as a priest and a handsome man with blonde hair had been hiding in the dark, silently watching this hard-won battle. After seeing Lancer killed, the priest was the most agitated, his eyes filled with hatred. The two of them hid under the shade of a tree, discussing in a low voice from time to time. They had been paying attention to the death battle between Dustless and Lancer. Until the end of the battle, their eyes never left. Damn it, the priest hit the tree trunk hard, venting his anger and dissatisfaction. 10 years is like a day, Gilgamesh. In the past, we were bullied by Dustless like this. Today, 10 years later, the outcome is exactly the same. Watch your tone, you bastard. You're the only one who was bullied. The arrogant blonde young man glanced at Yen Fengili, his hands in his pockets, his eyes as cold as knives. This duo was Gilgamesh and Yen Fengili. Time passed quickly, and 10 years had passed. Gilgamesh was a heroic spirit, but after 10 years, Yen Fengili's age and body structure had gradually withered. Gilgamesh, does your ridiculous self-esteem still exist? It's so funny. 10 years ago, the insufferably arrogant hero king became a foil. The protagonist of the Holy Grail War was Dustless. And everyone only knew that the hero king was just a loser who dragged out an ignoble existence. Yen Fengili was not afraid of Gilgamesh at all, and his words were full of sarcasm. The situation between Yen Fengili and Gilgamesh was like two crows standing on a pile of coal. No one would complain about the other. If Gilgamesh could win, Yen Fengili wouldn't mind being his subordinate. The key was that Gilgamesh didn't have the ability to defeat Dustless. No matter if he was a king or a god, he was just a loser at best. Who would respect a loser? Bastard, Gilgamesh coldly glanced at Yen Fengili and didn't want to argue with him. There was nothing he could do about it. After all, it was a fact. Even if he used all his strength, he wouldn't be able to stop Dustless. This guy is simply cheating. How preposterous. During the Fourth Holy Grail War, this guy was a heroic spirit. Now, He has suddenly become a master. Who gave Dustless the authority to do this? Yen Feng and Chili roared with flushed faces. Now, the right to supervise the Holy Grail war no longer belonged to the church, and no one would listen to their arrangements. They had been completely overridden. What right do you have to talk about others? Even if Dustless cheated, a bastard like you also cheated. Gilgamesh mocked coldly as he looked at Yen Fengili, whose face was filled with unwillingness. Yen Feng Qi had 2 servants. This was also cheating, and the situation was far worse than Dustless's. As the supervisor of the Holy Grail War, this is my right. Yen Feng Qi face turned red as he argued loudly, what's the point of us mocking each other here? Gilgamesh. Instead of spitting at each other out of boredom, why don't we think of some practical solutions? Otherwise, the final winner of this Holy Grail war will be Dustless again, Yen Feng Qi said anxiously. Yen Feng Qi said anxiously. After Gilgamesh's teaching, he had already turned evil. He desperately needed the Holy Grail to answer his many questions and the meaning of life. I don't have any solutions either. Gilgamesh's eyes that were like blood gems suddenly dimmed. After 10 years, even though he wasn't convinced, Gilgamesh had to admit that there was a huge gap between him and Dustless. Both of them were existences in completely different fields. Especially when he saw how Dustless played around with Lancer just now, Gilgamesh's thoughts became even more certain. Hero King. Are you planning to give up? Such actions are a disgrace to the name of the oldest king. Gilgamesh, you have fallen. Yen Feng Qi roared bitterly. He was still hoping that Gilgamesh could defeat Dustless, but this guy had already given up on himself. Bastard, do you have a way to defeat him? 10 years ago, if it wasn't for me, you would have turned into a skeleton by now. Otherwise, do you think you can stand under the sun and breathe freely? The funniest thing is that you still want to take revenge on Dustless. Bastard, if you haven't woken up yet, go home and sleep again. Gilgamesh turned around and attacked Yen Feng Qi without holding back. 10 years ago, Dustless shattered the Holy Grail in one fell swoop, causing the evil of this world to flow out. The severely injured Hero King was naturally corroded as well. If it was any other heroic spirit, they would have been devoured by the evil of this world. However, the unparalleled Hero King was not corroded by the evil of this world. Instead, he broke out of his cocoon and was reborn. And Yen Feng Qi, who had signed a contract with the Hero King, was saved as a result. No, you are mistaken. I know that Dustless is invincible, and I do not plan on hoping that you can finish off Dustless. Yen Feng Qi eyes shimmered as he revealed his plan. He sneered and said, Dustless and Weigong Kissy are different. The former may have a cold personality, but he will definitely not allow the people he values to be harmed. Weigong Kissy is truly a despicable person. Qi. Are you planning on attacking those women? Gilgamesh's eyes narrowed into slits. Yen Feng Qi was trying to pull chestnuts out of the fire. That's right. Yen Feng and Qi nodded. Although it was a little despicable, it didn't matter. This kind of extreme method would definitely be useless if it was used on Weigong Qi. However, during the battle with Lancer, Yen Feng and Qi saw that Dustless was angered. It could be seen that he saw the girls as his reverse scale. Gilgamesh, other than smashing a broken pot, what other methods do we have to deal with Dustless? I am also helpless in this predicament. All I can do is burn the boats. Yen Feng Qi answered disapprovingly. In his eyes, despicable and dirty methods were not important. The victor decided everything. All he needed to do was to capture Alice, Phil and company and ask Dustless to commit suicide. Chapter 1764. Yen Fengili's hatred for Dustless was as high as the sky, and he was filled with resentment and hostility. If he could, he wished that Gilgamesh and Dustless could die together immediately. However, one thing was undeniable. Yen Fengili admired and hated Dustless as an enemy. Sarvant, who could destroy everyone by himself, was so powerful. At the same time, it was precisely because of this absolute power that Yen Fengili was afraid of Dustless. For decades, he even dared to show his head easily, afraid that Dustless would take revenge on him. Despicable guy, he likes to do such thankless things. Yen Fengili was also dissatisfied with Dustless in other aspects. This guy seemed to be deliberately sent by God to oppose him. No matter when, he stood on the opposite side of him. You're just a heroic spirit, a tool used by other masters to satisfy their own wishes. Why do you have to do such a disgusting thing? Supervising the Holy Grail War was originally the Church's full strength, but now Dustless took it away. Participating in the Holy Grail War was originally something that only a master could do. Now, Dustless took Saber away and became the most bizarre and powerful master by replenishing her mana. The so-called Holy Grail War's original purpose was to collect all the souls of the heroic spirits. Souls were the raw material to promote the resurrection of the Holy Grail, but now Dustless ruined it. The Fifth Holy Grail War was completely instigated by Dustless alone. Chile, have you been driven to desperation? The Hero King said with a mocking expression, you used such a despicable method to force Dustless to compromise. Aren't you a member of the Church? Your mind is obviously dirtier than those criminals in prison. Humph. So what? Yen Fengili shouted indifferently, the winner takes all. Who cares if the process is despicable or glorious? Everyone only cares about the winner. And Gilgamesh, even if my mind is dirty, you're not much better. As they spoke, Yen Fengili and the Hero King began a new round of catfighting. Creak, damn it. Thinking of what Dustless had done, Yen Fengili was so angry that he ground his teeth. If it weren't for Dustless, the super cheating device that violated the rules of the game, nothing would have changed. Idiot, did you learn your lesson this time? On the other side, Dustless looked down at Ilya. The young lady was drenched in sweat, her palms were sweaty, and her face was as pale as a sheet of paper. She was almost limp in Dustless's arms. I'm not afraid. Ilya pouted and retorted. She even bit Dustless in dissatisfaction. Ouch, it hurts. Are you a dog? Dustless hurriedly pulled his hand out of Ilya's mouth. Looking at the scarlet teeth mark on his thumb, he scolded with a stern face, if you're still so unruly in the future, you definitely won't be able to find a boyfriend. Nosy fellow, that's my private matter. It's not up to you to interfere. Ilya raised her head proudly, looking very displeased. You're saying that I'm nosy. If it were anyone else, Dustless definitely wouldn't say anything. However, Alice Phil was already his, and to Dustless, he was equivalent to Ilya's father. Watch your tone, Ilya. If you dare to spout nonsense again, I'll spank your butt. Dustless glared at Ilya with a warning look and even made a slapping gesture. I'm not afraid of you. Ilya didn't fall for it. Instead, she skipped toward Alice Phil. Her bright eyes occasionally flashed a faint smile that was contrary to her tender age. She gave off the feeling of an old fox playing tricks. This mischievous little girl is really a headache, Dustless let out a long sigh. He didn't need to think to know that Ilya was most likely speaking ill of him to Alice Phil. Dustless could roughly guess the content. It was likely that he wasn't allowed to share a bed with Alice Phil. However, Ilya didn't have the final say on this point. It was human nature to eat and lust. This was an unchanging rule since ancient times. It's getting dark. Let's call it a day. Everyone, go back. After a busy day, fatigue swept through every part of his body. Dustless also felt sleepy. A feeling of drowsiness spread throughout his body. In particular, the mental fatigue was far greater than the physical fatigue. A group of women surrounded him and buzzed. Sometimes, he would be distracted and not understand what they were saying. He would also throw a tantrum for no reason. At the same time, a big problem occurred in another direction. Damn, is this guy Satyr? On the way back from the Ahrensburg family, Rindosaka and Saber unfortunately encountered uninvited guests. A man and woman duo blocked the way of the two women. Yo, Saber. Can you give me the thing in your hand? A sweet-sounding fairy-like voice came through, and Saber stared at her intently. This person was wearing a black robe. Her specific appearance and age couldn't be distinguished. Only her voice was quite pleasant. If beauty could be judged by a person's voice, then this mysterious woman could definitely get full marks. Her appearance and temperament were not worse than Saber. Are you Castor? A touch of vigilance flashed in her eyes. Saber raised the Excalibur high. First of all, she was sure that this guy was definitely a heroic spirit. Judging from the magic fluctuations, he was definitely not Lancer. Then, there was only one satyr left. Chapter 1765. According to Dustless's instructions, Ling and Saber had brought back the brand new Holy Grail instrument. Unfortunately, they happened to meet Castor and his master, Gumu Soichiro. Gumu-sensei. I didn't expect him to be Satyr's master. Ling's eyes were full of surprise. She stared at the expressionless Gumu Soichiro and asked, is Gumu also a sorcerer? I haven't heard of him before. But Gumu Soichiro remained indifferent, as if he didn't hear anything and turned a deaf ear. This guy seems to be wrong. Saber also circled around Gumu Soichiro. As a servant, she could see more clearly than Rin and Osaka. Gumu Soichiro's eyes were still, without any human emotions. They were as cold as a steel puppet. Of course something is wrong. He's already under my control. Satyr smiled. Even with the black robe covering her face, her soul-stirring elegant smile made people lose their minds. You, Rin Enbin slightly frowned and reprimanded, involving innocent people in this war, you have violated the essence of participating in the Holy Grail War, Satyr. The rules are only for the weak. Castor calmly retorted, isn't Saber's master a person who often tramples on the rules? This guy is quite eloquent. Rin Enbin and Saber looked at each other, they were both speechless. Dustless had repeatedly ignored the rules of the Holy Grail and participated in the Holy Grail War as a servant. This kind of thing had never happened before. It was completely against the rules. Wuchen often committed such violations and even disregard of the rules. Are you speechless? Seeing Saber and Rin Enbin were silent and staring at her, Satyr took the opportunity to explain, it is because that guy is strong, he can trample on all the rules again and again, he can do whatever he wants, but you are not Dustless. You are far inferior to him. Rin Enbin deliberately reminded Castor that when Berserker was killed by Dustless, he said that Dustless's strength was comparable to Zeus. In some countries, ordinary humans with high status had a lot of privileges. Naturally, experts like Dustless could ignore some rules as well. Rules were dead, but people were alive. When a person reached a certain height, they would begin to trample on the so-called rules. Being inferior to him is only temporary. Castor snorted and immediately took out a strange weapon and stared at Saber. You will be my slave from now on. Swish. Swish. Seeing that Castor took out a mysterious weapon, Saber flashed in front of Ling and held her sword with both hands. Ling, be careful. That glowing purple weapon may be Castor's noble phantasm. Final struggle. Castor snorted and looked at Kugi Soichiro coldly. You go and temporarily restrain Saber, I will catch the little girl and threaten Saber. Saber is a person who values the spirit of chivalry. If the person she is guarding is caught, she will take the initiative to be tortured. Castor was full of confidence and looked at Ling, swish. Kugi Soichiro, who was controlled by Castor, nodded mechanically, then he turned into a gust of wind and instantly approached Saber. How can this guy be so fast? Seeing the fleeting shadow, Saber's pupils shrank. Even she could only see a vague shadow, it was difficult for her to detect it. Ha! Kugi Soichiro clenched his fist tightly and looked at the loophole in Saber's body and punched her. Boom! At the critical moment, Saber hurriedly used Excalibur to block in front of her. Even so, she was still knocked back and almost fell to the ground. How is it possible? How can this guy be so strong? How can he defeat a Valkyrie? Ling was stunned. Kugi Soichiro's performance was beyond her understanding. Maybe Castor used magic to strengthen his body. Saber said with a dignified expression, and at the same time, her eyes changed. She no longer looked at Kugi Soichiro as a human, but as a Valkyrie. Oh. Saber, I can see that you have a close relationship with Dustless, and the way you signed the contract is a bit different. Castor smiled and said, you must have signed the contract with your first knight, right? This guy, Saber's face instantly turned red. She didn't understand why Castor said such a thing in public. She really didn't understand whether Castor was too noble or she cared too much about the past. What? That bastard signed the contract with Saber in this way. The furious voice instantly resounded through the sky. The vast dark night instantly turned into a golden ocean. A certain furious golden twinkle was completely enraged. Like a volcano that had been ignited, its entire body was filled with raging killing intent. The person he liked, actually went to the bed of his enemy. The golden flash vomited blood. Chapter 1766. Abominable, 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 abominable. That guy actually defiled this king's possession, he deserves to die, he must be cut into pieces. Gilgamesh suddenly flashed, and his hair stood up. Unknowingly, Dustless, that bastard, actually made a cuckold out of his wife. You must punish him. Gilgamesh's face was extremely distorted. When he thought of how Saber ignored him and signed a contract with Dustless on her first night as a newlywed, Gilgamesh felt a burst of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Hoo-hoo-hoo, Gilgamesh's face was red, the veins on his face were bulging, and his breathing speed was dozens of times faster than usual. His whole person was like a volcano that was about to erupt, he was extremely dangerous. Who are you? Archer. Saber and Castor exclaimed at the same time. Saber was okay, after all, she had experienced the strength of the Hero King, but Castor was obviously panicking, his eyes were full of fear and panic, the sky full of noble phantoms was too deadly. What kind of monster is this guy? How can he use so many noble phantoms at once? Castor was frightened, and his delicate body was trembling, the sky full of noble phantoms was too oppressive, most of the other heroes only had one noble phantoms, but Gilgamesh had thousands of them, who wouldn't be surprised? Buzz, facing the golden light in the sky, everyone felt as if their bones were stuck in their throat, and they couldn't breathe smoothly. The life that was usually in their hands fell on the head of the Hero King at the moment. It seemed that this guy could kill everyone in an instant with just a thought. Saber. Who is this guy? How can he mobilize so many noble phantoms? Ling was also shocked, looking at the golden glitter, he subconsciously took 2 steps back. This guy is Sarvant, who served as the archer in the last Holy Grail War. His body is the Hero King of ancient Uruk, the king of all the heroes. Saber explained softly, because he is the most ancient king, the Hero King belongs to the origin of right and wrong, and has the prototype of all the hero phantoms. He also has the prototype of my Excalibur. However, Saber's tone was full of disdain. But this guy's ability is also to steal from Dustless. The so-called ancient king is at best a thief. Saber, pay attention to your words for this king. It was that guy who stole my ability. After the corner of his mouth twitched, the hero king's expression turned even more gloomy. He was so angry that he was jumping around. Was there a need to be such a scam? Dustless was the one who stole my ability. Why is everyone saying that I stole his? Preposterous. What a glib tongue, but it's a fact that Dustless is more familiar with this ability than you. Thieves like you are scum. Since Dustless didn't manage to kill you last time, I'll take care of you this time. You, bastard. Gilgamesh's eyes were filled with anger. He was really angered by Saber's words because Saber poked at Gilgamesh's sore spot. Even though he was the original owner of the Gate of Babylon, Gilgamesh's proficiency was far from Dustless's level. Therefore, Gilgamesh had always been regarded as a fake, and it was he who stole Dustless's ability. Whoosh! At the same time, Gumu Soichiro also launched another attack. His body turned into a black wind and rushed towards Spare. Bastard, who allowed you to mess around in front of the king? You are despising the king's authority, go to hell. Gilgamesh waved his hand, and thousands of light fell at the same time. Puchi! 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 Gumu Soichiro's abdomen was suddenly severely injured, and there were more than a dozen divine weapons in his abdomen, ending his life. Damn it, Castor cursed and looked at Gilgamesh with cold eyes. You're that guy's servant, right? Then you'll die too. The light in the void changed its direction and all of them were aimed at Castor. Gilgamesh's cold eyes were indifferent, and he looked at Castor as if he was looking at a dead man. Whoosh! After a while, thousands of golden light poured down, and it seemed that Castor's life was about to end. Buzz! There was a ripple of power in the void, and it was at that moment, a sudden change occurred. Tao Breaker 88, Flying Dragon strikes the thief. Whoosh! The light in the sky suddenly attacked from the side. There were so many of them, and they were so powerful that they were not inferior to the relic that Gilgamesh shot from the Gate of Babylon. Boom! There were a lot of sparks in the sky, and a lot of light collided with the divine weapons, resulting in a violent explosion. The dense high-density explosion filled the entire sky. Are you finally willing to come out? You're really in the limelight. Gilgamesh stared at Dustless, who was floating in the sky, and suddenly groaned with great dissatisfaction. In his opinion, the sky has always been his territory, and people like Dustless only need to kneel on the ground and worship him. Castor is not pleasing to the eye, but you are even more disgusting. In the darkness, a figure walked out with a smile. He sized up the enraged hero king with a mocking expression. He felt like he had been shot while lying down. First of all, you look so stupid, and you look like a rich man. If I were Saber, I wouldn't like you. Staring at the hero king, Dustless didn't care about adding fuel to the fire. Chapter 1767. The hero king was furious when he heard that. He clenched his fists, and the sweat on his palms kept dripping. You are the first person who dares to say that I'm a retard, and that I'm a country bumpkin. Gilgamesh said in a low voice, trying to suppress the anger in his heart. Because of his excessive anger, his whole body was trembling with anger. This is the truth. Don't you think you are very conspicuous when you come out wearing gold? Dustless asked strangely. That is the taste of a king. As a king, no matter where you go, you must be the center of attention. Without thinking, Gilgamesh replied without thinking, this is the taste of a king, ordinary people don't understand. I really don't understand the mentality of a tycoon. Dustless nodded and admitted, but he couldn't understand how wearing a gold armor to parade around the city had the majesty of a king. It gave people the feeling that he was a nouveau riche. The last Holy Grail war didn't kill you, but you got a body because of the evil of this world. So that you can see the light of day again. Boy, you are lucky, but this Holy Grail war is going to be unlucky. If you live incognito, maybe you can escape the disaster. TSK, you took the initiative to come out and die, sad and lamentable, and... Narrowing his eyes, Dustless said sarcastically, the one and only hero king in the world actually sneak attacked others, and even planned to capture Saber to threaten me. Your actions make the name of the ancient king cry. Of course I won't do such a despicable thing. It's just that Yen Feng Chili used command spell to order me to do so. Gilgamesh said with extreme disgust. These words were not false. As the ancient king, his dignity did not allow him to do such a despicable thing. When he heard that Yen Feng Chili wanted him to capture Saber alive to threaten Dustless, Gilgamesh decisively refused. He would not lower himself to do such a thing even if he died in battle. But as the saying goes, an arm can't win against a leg. Yen Feng Chili directly used command spell. Even if Gilgamesh was full of complaints and disgust, he had to carry out the order. You also have the same plan, right? Castor. Staring at Castor, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head and thought, these guys know that their strength is not a threat to me, so they want to capture Alice and Phil to threaten me? His methods are truly vile. But what a pity, Dustless smiled complacently and said to himself lazily, to be on the safe side, I have left Flying Thunder God warlocks on all of them. Even if there is danger, I can come to support them at the first moment. You want to fight me with your ridiculous strategy? You are too inexperienced. An idiot who overestimates himself. No wonder you suddenly appeared like a ghost. Damn it, you even have this kind of spatial ability. How are the other heroic spirits going to fight him then? Castor's face was extremely angry, and he stamped his feet in embarrassment. Although he didn't know what Flying Thunder God Warlock was, he could hear from Dustless's mouth that it was an object similar to a spatial coordinate. No wonder some masters and heroic spirits once privately called Dustless as a cheating maniac. There are so many strange abilities, this should be your other abilities, I don't remember, the king's treasure, having such an extraordinary spatial ability. Compared to the shocked Castor, Gilgamesh was much calmer. He had already accepted Dustless's strength, not to mention when it came to cheating, no one was more shameless than Yen Feng Chili. Dustless's abilities belonged to him, and he could use them legally. On the contrary, Yen Feng Chili actually had 2 Sarvtants, 1 Lancer, and 1 Gilgamesh. In addition, he also had almost inexhaustible command spell. These 2 perverts. Castor's eyes circled around Wu Qin and Gilgamesh, and he became timid. Whether it was Wu Qin or Gilgamesh, any one of them could easily defeat him, there was no comparison at all. After thinking for a while, Castor decided to retreat. But there was a strange light in the depths of his eyes. Castor looked at Dustless and Gilgamesh with hatred. His series of plans were ruined by these 2 bastards. Get that girl, she is the weakest, and we will have one more trump card in the future game. Looking at Rin Enbin, Castor's eyes were full of desire. What's with that look? Castor, you don't seem to have figured out who saved you. If it wasn't for me, you and that idiot Gumu Soichiro would have been killed by this golden flash. Dustless pointed at Gilgamesh and said arrogantly in a tone that said, you should kneel down and thank me. Don't talk nonsense if you are uneducated. Gilgamesh carefully tried to figure out the meaning of Dustless' words. When he heard this golden flash, he immediately shouted loudly at Dustless for being uneducated. He was not a dog, why did he use the word golden flash? You want me to thank you? Then how can I thank you? I don't think I have anything worthy of your attention. If I really have something, it's nothing more than this body. Castor's cheeks were full of love, and his eyes were as soft as water. Is this guy going to seduce me? Dustless's eyebrows slightly jumped. He was not controlled by Castor's charm. He coldly warned, "Put away your ridiculous thoughts. If you dare to touch Rin, I will cut off your hands." Chapter 1768. Hearing Dustless's threatening tone, Castor retracted his outstretched hands and stared at Dustless unwillingly. Damn man. Castor's cheeks bulged, and he stomped his feet. Ha! Seeing this scene, Rin Enbin couldn't help but laugh. He was afraid that only Dustless had such a deterrent power. Other servant couldn't scare Castor. Instead of standing here, it's better to find another way to survive. Your master has disappeared. Although the mana stored in her body is large enough, it will be exhausted one day. Dustless said. As a magician, Castor's mana was definitely second to none. Even if his master died, as long as she didn't consume too much of her mana, she wouldn't disappear in 3 or 5 days. It's a small world, let's wait and see. Castor put away his unwillingness and finally withdrew his sight, turned around and retreated. What about you, Gilgamesh, are you going to fight with me now? Dustless narrowed his eyes and asked with a smile, You don't seem to have the intention to fight with me for the time being. Gilgamesh just stood quietly. There was no sign of fighting, and there was no murderous aura. He didn't seem to take the initiative to fight with Dustless. Of course. Before I fight you to the death, I have to get rid of someone, Gold Glitter said thoughtfully. His blood-red eyes were filled with a horrified murderous aura. Then, Gilgamesh and Castor disappeared exactly the same way. Does Gilgamesh still have enemies alive? It's strange, with the hero king's temper, it's a blessing that his enemies are still alive. Saber whispered to herself, Gilgamesh has always been the kind of person who takes revenge. It's a miracle that he let his enemies live. Saber, you're wrong, the person Gilgamesh wants to get rid of is not an enemy. Wuchen looked up at the beautiful void and made a shocking guess. If I'm not wrong, the person he wants to kill should be his master, Yen Feng Chili. Impossible. Hearing that, Saber and Rin Enbin questioned Dustless's guess at the same time. Although it sounds ridiculous, that's the truth. Gilgamesh is arrogant. Yen Fengqi used the command seal to order him again and again. This guy may have been angry for a long time. If it weren't for the command seal, I'm afraid he would have already killed Yen Fengqi. In the last Holy Grail War, Gilgamesh lost to Dustless, causing Yen Feng and Chili to be very dissatisfied with him. They pushed all the blame to Gilgamesh, and quarreled from time to time. Gilgamesh's patience with Yen Feng and Chili had reached its limit. Anyway, even if he killed Yen Fengqi, as long as he had enough mana storage, he wouldn't disappear immediately. And as for us, let's rest tonight. Tomorrow we will go to Ludong Temple to resurrect the Holy Grail. It's the most suitable place for the Holy Grail to descend. The next morning, the wind was blowing and the sun was shining. Dustless and Saber rushed to Ludong Temple early. As for the others, they continued to stay in the castle. Although the Flying Thunder God Warlock was left at home, they could come back at any time. For the sake of safety, Dustless still left a few shadow clones behind. In the quiet and dense forest, the air was fresh and the atmosphere was serene. The tranquil atmosphere made people feel relaxed involuntarily. Creak. Suddenly, a sharp bird cry sounded, and then countless birds and beasts scattered in all directions, looking for the source of the sound. It turned out that there were 2 more uninvited guests. It's really a good place. There's a huge amount of mana under the veins of the earth here. It's the best place to descend the Holy Grail, and it's also Castor's nest. These 2 uninvited guests were Saber and Dustless. I hope that guy escaped in advance. Looking up at the high ancient temple, Dustless and Saber stepped on the steps, step by step. Their backs were very peaceful, and Dustless's cheeks were very calm. The two walked side by side, no one spoke. Saber. Why are you so nervous? Dustless's pace stopped, he stared at Saber, who had sweat on her forehead, and said softly, "You're thinking about what kind of wish is suitable for the Holy Grail, right? It seems that you still can't let go of the destruction of Britain. Am I very stubborn?" Saber bitterly nodded and admitted. "Maybe, but it doesn't matter." Dustless was not surprised. It would be strange if Saber suddenly changed her life goal. "Didn't I tell you before, go your own way, let others say what they want. You don't have to understand other people's feelings, including mine, just follow your inner instinct and do what you like." Dustless's lips squirmed, and when he was about to continue to speak, suddenly thousands of white light came from all directions. After condensing, it slowly compressed into a human shape, then it turned into an eyesore. "Sorry, it's really rude to disturb the two of you. There's a very annoying guy who asked me to say that this road is blocked, so you two should go back the way you came." Chapter 1769. The mysterious man was handsome. He was wearing a hat, his long hair was hanging down to his waist, he was wearing wooden clogs, and he was wearing a unique costume of ancient Japan. Buzz buzz buzz, the man was holding a tachi, his 5 fingers were deformed. It was estimated that his skill was extraordinary. Even if the tachi was not out of its sheath, there was a subtle sword aura radiating out, and the skin could feel a little tingling. "Who is this guy?" Saber's eyes were fixed, she was full of vigilance, she was aware of the sword aura in the air, she was even more nervous. This mysterious man brought a lot of pressure to her. "It's Assassin, but she should be summoned by Caster." After confirming that he was not mistaken, Dustless said the mysterious man's origin, Sasaki Kojiro, a great swordsman with great strength. "Who exactly are you?" The elegant man's eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. He was shocked. "You know my origin, especially your confident look. It seems that you even know my past experience." "Yes, I know." Dustless shrugged and nodded. He looked at Sasaki Kojiro and said impatiently, "Get out of my way if you know what's good for you. What if I don't let you have the meeting?" Noticing Dustless's tone was full of hostility, Sasaki Kojiro asked with a blank expression, "Why don't you use your magical power to see what my future is like?" "See the future?" Saber's heart skipped a beat. He lowered his head and muttered to himself, "I knew Dustless could do things that no one else could. I didn't expect him to have the ability to see the future as well." "Hey, do you really want to know your future?" Dustless stared at Sasaki Kojiro with a smile and reminded him, "Maybe it's a nightmarish future." "Really? Then I'm looking forward to it." Sasaki Kojiro still looked hopeful. "Then I'll be merciful and tell you." Dustless's handsome face suddenly outlined a gloomy smile. He said coldly, "Your future is very short. If you continue to stay here and block the way, you will inevitably die in a minute." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. When Dustless's voice fell, a strange wind blew in the sky. The originally quiet forest was suddenly filled with an evil aura, and a black wind blew. Dying tragically within a minute is also worth looking forward to. Sasaki Kojiro always had a faint smile on his face. The only difference was that he also noticed the sense of danger and oppression in the atmosphere. Clang 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 clang. A slender and sharp odachi was unsheathed from its scabbard. "Looks like it's going to be difficult to negotiate." Dustless focused on Sasaki Kojiro, and a sharp and shining golden sword appeared in his hand. "Difficult to negotiate?" Saber shook his head and looked at Dustless speechlessly. He could not help but think to himself, "You're provoking him like this. It's impossible for him to resolve this battle." Dustless's words were full of sarcasm and provocation. It was impossible for Sasaki Kojiro to stop fighting. "Let me see what's so special about you." With a stern look, Sasaki Kojiro held the odachi in his hand, and his body turned into a stream of light. The sharp tip of the odachi swept towards Dustless's head. "You're overestimating yourself." Seeing this, Wuchen reacted immediately. His left eye turned into a purple rinnegan. He blinked gently, and a powerful eye power burst out like a stormy sea. Tomb of Samsara, border prison. In the invisible world, several shadows flew out from Dustless's body. Each shadow was holding a cold dagger, and they rushed toward Sasaki Kojiro. Clang clang. Seeing that the Odachi was about to cut Dustless's head, it strangely stopped. The Odachi fell beside Dustless's ear, and it could no longer move forward. What's going on? Sasaki Kojiro was shocked. He used all his strength to move the Odachi, but he found that it was as if his Odachi was embedded in a high-density rock, and he could not move it at all. Saber looked at the Odachi next to Dustless's ear without blinking. Not only was Sasaki Kojiro confused, but she was also confused. No one cared about the Odachi at all, and it was even directly ignored by Dustless, but the strange thing was that Sasaki Kojiro could not move it with all his strength. Idiot! Dustless snorted. In fact, Sasaki Kojiro's Odachi had been caught by his shadow. Puchi! 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 At the same time, the sound of the body being cut suddenly sounded. There was a lot of blood in the air, and the ground was also covered with a lot of blood stains. Sasaki Kojiro's mouth trembled, and he looked at his body that was full of holes in disbelief. Even if he couldn't see, he could feel that he was attacked by dozens of sharp weapons at the same time. It's really embarrassing. I reminded you before, but you were too careless. Dustless said with a harmless and kind expression. He chuckled and said, "Didn't I just say that within a minute, you will die tragically? Why didn't you pay attention at all? What a sad guy. What kind of sorcery did you use?" Sasaki Kojiro stared at Dustless in disbelief. Looking at his bloody chest, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. He was sure that the culprit was Dustless, but the key was, how did he do it? He didn't even notice it. Not only was Sasaki Kojiro frightened, but even Saber was so shocked that she opened her mouth wide enough to fit a fist. Looking at his shocking wound, Saber felt a chill. Sasaki Kojiro didn't notice it, and even she didn't understand how Dustless attacked. This also means that Dustless can hurt anyone without them noticing. Chapter 1770. How did he do it? It's impossible. I didn't even react at all. Could it be a ghost? What's more, this guy isn't even Sarvant. He's just a master who participated in the Holy Grail War. How can he be so strong? Sasaki Kojiro was so shocked that his jaw almost dislocated. He was frightened and puzzled at the same time. If a master was so powerful that he could kill Sarvant at will, then what was the use of them? Saber was silent and didn't say a word. She could understand Sasaki Kojiro's pain. When he was killed just now, even she didn't see how he did it. Do you still have the strength to stand up? Looking down at Sasaki Kojiro, who fell to the ground, Dustless commented, "Your strength is good. In my impression, the strength of a great swordsman is the outstanding type. If you want to find an excuse, I don't need others to do it for me." Sasaki Kojiro's face was gloomy, and his eyes glowed with a firm light. He inserted his tachi into the ground, and his body full of holes stood up again. What an ignorant fool. Seeing this, Dustless shook his head, and the purple rinnegan in his left eye blinked again. The shadows that stopped beside Sasaki Kojiro launched a fatal attack again. Puchi! 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 The ruthless attack came again, and the same scene happened again. As many as 4 or 5 shadows began to beat up Sasaki Kojiro again. His body was extremely miserable, and there were 20 more wounds on his body. No one can defend against this technique. Tomb of Samsara, border prison, is the natural enemy of all creatures. Dustless muttered, took Saber's soft little hand, and stepped over Sasaki Kojiro's gradually dissipating body. Only those with Rinnegan or Rikudo Senjutsu could detect the existence of the shadow. Therefore, Sasaki Kojiro was just blinded, and so was Saber. She couldn't find out who attacked Sasaki Kojiro. That's right. Dustless suddenly stopped and looked at Sasaki Kojiro, whose body had disappeared and only his head was left. He said, "You are very strong, but unfortunately, you are in my way." Inside the quiet temple, fallen leaves drifted in the wind and a cool breeze blew. The environment of Ludong Temple, which was surrounded by mountains, was excellent. Bathing in the fragrance of nature, one's heart and mind were sublimated. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Unfortunately, this rare suppression was disrupted by someone else. Both of you, it's really rude of you to intrude into someone else's home and disturb them while they're drinking tea. A clear voice sounded from under the cherry blossom tree. Dustless and Saber glanced at each other and looked in the direction of the voice. "Castor, I'm sorry to disturb your interest, but I don't know anything about tea. In my eyes, there are only enemies and friends. Which one do you belong to?" Walking side by side with Saber under the gorgeous cherry blossom tree, Dustless looked at Castor, who was admiring himself, and at the same time, he stared at the 2 extra tea bowls and drank it without hesitation. "You're not polite at all." Castor looked up at Dustless and was about to ask how it tasted, but the latter's words suddenly made him furious. "It's disgusting, this taste is comparable to a biological weapon." Dustless coughed, as if he was going to spit out the tea in his stomach. "Ha!" Saber couldn't help but chuckle. Even though she didn't try the taste, the fragrance of the tea filled the air and didn't disperse. Although she didn't know the specific taste, it wasn't as exaggerated as Wu Qin said. Saber was sure that Dustless deliberately made Castor angry. "Well, it's a pity that I didn't poison you to death." Castor's face was cold, his great interest was all disturbed by Dustless. "Well, if I'm going to die, it's not good for you." Dustless smiled and immediately sat opposite Castor, and said coldly, "Although all the conditions of the Holy Grail have been met, there is one thing I still need your help with, Castor. My master has been killed, you can still see that I continue to exist, everything is because of the strong magic of Ludong Temple, it's only a matter of time before I disappear. What do you think I can help you with?" "Anne." Glancing at Dustless, Castor said coldly, "Also, you seem to have made a mistake, we Sarvant are opposite to each other, why should I help you?" "Help an enemy?" Of course, Castor refused, only a person with a broken brain would do that. "You are a magician, right?" Dustless picked up the tea bowl and took a sip. He secretly praised Castor in his heart, although he said that it was a biological weapon, Castor's tea-making skill was good. "The resurrection of the Holy Grail needs some unique magic circle, if you help me complete it, I can share the fruits of the Holy Grail with you." Dustless set his own conditions. "You?" Hearing that, Castor was stunned, then he asked excitedly, "You are willing to give me the Holy Grail?" "Give it to you? Are you kidding me? This is something I worked hard for." Dustless rolled his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Help me get the Holy Grail, I can help you resurrect." Chapter 1771. Help me resurrect. Castor's throat choked a few times, his eyes were shining, and his breathing was slightly messy. "Hey," seeing this, Dustless revealed a confident smile and continued to bluff, "The Holy Grail has many uses. It can not only fulfill one's wish. You've seen Gilgamesh last time, right?" "Gilgamesh?" Hearing this strange name, Castor shook his head, there was no such name in his memory. "It's the guy I saw last time." Saber interrupted and reminded him, "Your master, Kugi Soichiro, was killed by that guy." It turned out to be him. Castor heard that and said to Dustless in surprise, "Did that guy also participate in the last Holy Grail War?" "That's impossible, I heard that the winner was you, why did that guy get a new body? Did you give him the Holy Grail? That's not it, I'm not that great, especially that guy. Dustless shook his head, giving the Holy Grail to Gilgamesh. Are you kidding me? I'm not gay. In the final battle, I didn't control my strength and broke the Holy Grail. Having said that, Dustless's tone paused slightly, and he sighed. It caused all the evil of the world, contained in the Holy Grail to flow out, and Gilgamesh also bathed in the evil of the world. Under normal circumstances, anything that bathes in the evil of the world, whether it's a person or something else, will be devoured, but that guy is the only hero king in the world. He was not devoured, on the contrary, he got a new life. The Holy Grail has such a function. Castor was stunned when he heard that, and then he licked his lips hungrily. Sure enough, you're tempted. Dustless smiled slightly, all of this was expected. If you can continue to live, no one wants to die. Human nature is greedy, and it's human instinct to ask for unlimited things, not to mention death. But, Castor suddenly frowned, and he asked, the evil of the world, you said seems to be very dangerous. My strength is not as good as the hero king, what if I get devoured? This is your own business, I'm not your babysitter, I'm not your relative. Do you want me to help you eliminate the evil of the world? Dustless shrugged his shoulders with a tone of wanting to help but unable to do so. Humph. Sure enough, Castor snorted coldly and said with dissatisfaction, what if I die? In this way, how can I take revenge on that guy? My plan last time was also related to him. It's none of my business. Wuchen turned his head and decisively distanced himself from the relationship. If you die, it only shows that you are useless. This world is originally so cruel. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. No matter how times change, this will not change. Hearing that, Castor was silent, but he didn't refute. How can he refute? Because this was the truth. No matter which part of the sky one was in, the law of the jungle would always remain unchanged. If that's the case, Castor took a few deep breaths, and his eyes were filled with determination. He looked at Dustless with indescribable firmness. It's useless for you to look at me with such a pitiful look, there's no benefit for me to do it, this is, be my master. Without giving Dustless a chance to speak, Castor suddenly rushed over and looked at Dustless with his beautiful eyes. At the same time, he blew hot air into Dustless's ear, and a simple but elegant body fragrance inevitably passed into Dustless's nostrils. This guy. What do you want to do? When Saber saw such a scene, she was like a cat whose tail was stepped on. If it weren't for the existence of Dustless, she wouldn't mind teaching Castor a lesson. Saber was so angry with Castor's action that she almost said Castor's name word by word. Castor, be clear about this is not the place for you to show your charm. Saber's face was ugly as she reprimanded loudly. It was rare for her to show her fierce side. Teaching a weak person a lesson, although it's against the rules of being a knight, you'd better not challenge my tolerance. Castor's magical power was now gradually exhausted, and he might disappear at any time. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was powerless. Are you crazy? Castor. Dustless looked at Saber in surprise and frowned. I'm already Saber's master, how can I be your master? How do you know if you don't try? Don't forget, Yen Feng Chili has 2 servants, one is Lancer, and the other is Archer. Castor casually explained, I'll only trust you if I sign a contract with you. This. Dustless hesitated for a while, and finally nodded. I can try, but you must immediately help me complete the magic circle to summon the Holy Grail. No problem. Castor decisively agreed without the slightest hesitation. But, then Dustless frowned and embarrassedly said, to be honest, I have a special way to sign a contract with Saber, and I'm not a magician, so it may be difficult to sign a contract with you. It's very simple, we'll sign the contract the way you and Saber signed the contract. Castor said with a slightly embarrassed tone, and his face was slightly red. Are you sure? Saber and I are doing it for the first time. Chapter 1772. First time way. Hearing that, Castor's face was even redder, and he nodded stiffly. In fact, he also guessed it. Dustless, we are here to resurrect the Holy Grail, not to create a good opportunity for you to talk to her. Saber was very upset, like an angry lion. She stared at Castor with hostility. Oh, it's so sour. Is it my family's vinegar jar? Castor teased with a smile. This guy, Dustless, was speechless when he heard Castor's words. It was meaningless. The vinegar jar that Castor was referring to was Saber. Castor looked at Saber and said, the Holy Grail needs other rituals, not to mention other tedious mistakes. Do you know how to prepare the magic circle? Saber was speechless and could only stare. In the end, she sat at the side angrily and glared at Dustless fiercely, as if to say, just wait and see. Really, Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had to helplessly comfort Saber and whispered, life is full of helplessness, sometimes you can only compromise, Saber. Compromise. Hearing that, Saber looked at Dustless and questioned loudly, although you have some resistance on the surface, I have been with you for a long time. I know you want it. Ahem, Dustless suddenly coughed twice awkwardly. He no longer paid attention to Saber. He looked at Castor and asked, in short, what's your plan? The final decision lies with you. I will never force you. I can only promise you. After pondering for a long time, Castor finally chose to compromise. At the same time, he looked at Dustless speechlessly. This guy said that he would not force him, but there was only one way. What was the difference between this and forcing? That's the best. Then Saber and I will stay here for the night. Dustless nodded, meaning that he would do it with Castor tonight. At night, the sky was getting colder, and the cold wind was blowing. In the antique room, the lights were everywhere, and there was a sense of antiquity everywhere. Because they were living in the temple at the moment, it was not as prosperous as a big city. There were only interesting antique buildings. Although it was quite uncomfortable in the dark, it was undeniable that it was quite artistic. Through the darkness, Dustless and Castor hugged each other and slept in the warm quilt. During that time, naturally, many things that were not suitable for children happened. It was not a simple 10 minutes, or a few hours, it was a whole night. In addition to signing the contract, Wu Chen and Castor also replenished their mana. There was no other way. The mana in Castor's body had been exhausted. Even if they signed the contract, the mana storage was pitiful. If they didn't give him some mana, it would disappear sooner or later, and Wu Chen was not a magician, so he could only replenish his mana. Of course, replenishing mana was also the fastest and most effective way to gain mana. Is this guy's body so fierce? In the early morning of the next day, Saber stood in front of Wu Chen and Castor's room. She was secretly surprised by Wu Chen's fighting power. He was so shameless that it was really embarrassing. Damn Dustless, damn Castor. Saber scolded. Last night, she was like a spectator, guarding Dustless and Castor's room. She watched the whole night, and now she still had dark circles under her eyes. Creak. After a few minutes, Wu Chen walked out of the room lazily. He looked haggard and his steps were frivolous. It was obvious that his body had been hollowed out. Hey, don't be tired to death, or else Archer will take advantage of you. S's extremely unhappy voice suddenly passed through. Dustless turned his head and looked at Saber, whose eyes were red. Ayaya, what a jealous little girl. Castor's lazy voice sounded. Unlike Dustless, Castor was refreshed, and there was a touch of intoxicating charm between his eyebrows. This kind of thing is really a man's loss. Dustless looked up and sighed. and immediately went to Saber and comforted her. We will be on the same side in the future. With Sarvant, our chances of winning will be greater. It's not a big deal for me to be wronged. You're still wronged. Saber stared at Dustless in shock, looking at his cheeks. For the first time in her life, she felt that Dustless was the most shameless creature in the world, including all the creatures in the sea, land, and air. But this guy really used magic to control Kugi Soichiro. She stared at Castor, who had a little bit of enjoyment on his face. Last night, Castor didn't give his first time to Gumu Soichiro as if he was helping her. In the end, it was Wu Qin who took advantage of it. By the way, when will the Holy Grail come? I've brought everything I need to prepare. The so-called thing was actually Ilya, but this Ilya was not the Ilya. She was the android that Dustless ordered Saber to snatch from the Ahrensburg family. Although they looked exactly the same, there was not the slightest connection. Chapter 1773. There are still some steps needed. For ordinary people, it will take at least a few days. Castor looked at the blue sky and said proudly, "That's only for ordinary people. As for me, I can solve it in a few hours." "A few days? Do you really need that long?" Dustless asked blankly. He still remembered the last time Yen Feng spent only a few minutes to solve the problem of the Holy Grail. "Do you doubt me?" Castor asked with dissatisfaction. "Don't doubt my ability. Everything needs to be prepared. Everything has a cause and a result. The process in the middle can't be omitted." "That's true." On second thought, Wu Qin was relieved. Anyway, he didn't lack those few hours of effort. "You know what to do." Castor looked at Dustless with a satisfied smile on his face, and then under the gaze of Dustless, he walked away gracefully. "Castor, why are you smiling so happily?" Saber also caught up with him and said, "It seems that Dustless and you had a very intimate thing yesterday." "Don't call me Castor, I have a name, Medea." Looking at Saber's depressed face, Castor smiled even more happily. "You can call me Artoria." Although Saber was quite jealous of Castor's brilliant smile and wanted to beat him up, but out of the etiquette of a knight, she still gave her name in a friendly manner. "Artoria, do you want to know why I'm so happy?" Castor smiled and said, "That guy Wu Qin cares about me very much. He seems to be henpecked. He doesn't have any doubts about my plan. He basically listens to everything I say." Last night, Castor and Dustless discussed a lot of trivial matters, and the latter unexpectedly agreed. Castor was surprised. Dustless was unexpectedly easy to talk to. Just because of this. "Don't you know there is a saying that a good man doesn't fight with a woman?" Saber's resentment was swept away. She rolled her eyes and said, "And you're wrong too. Wu Qin isn't henpecked. It's just that you don't know him well enough." "Do you know about it?" Castor glanced at Saber and asked suspiciously. "Of course." Saber raised her head confidently and replied calmly, "I've spent a lot more time with Dustless than you. I know him like the back of my hand." "Oh. Tell me about it." Castor's interest was piqued, and he stopped walking. His eyes were twinkling as if he was looking forward to it. "Dustless agreed to your conditions not because he's afraid of you. Being henpecked is even more ridiculous. In the end, it's just that guy thinks it's his responsibility as a man." In fact, this was what Saber admired the most about Dustless. It was understandable that he was cruel and merciless to his enemies, but when it came to his own people, he was sincere and caring. "You and Dustless are husband and wife, but you can't even fulfill your wife's wish. Are you still a man? That's why that guy agreed to all your conditions. That's what happened to Alice Phil." Saber said, and Castor couldn't help but nod. Sometimes, a man could tolerate his wife's nonsense, not because of the so-called henpecked, but because of the basic responsibility of a husband. If they really fought, Dustless could defeat 100 caster. Being henpecked was completely nonsense. Achoo! In the other direction, Dustless inexplicably sneezed. He was lying on the couch leisurely, and he opened his slightly tired eyes. Who's talking about me so early in the morning? Dustless touched his nose and thought strangely, then he closed his eyes again. Whoosh! The leaves were fluttering, the atmosphere was quiet and peaceful, but it was filled with a different kind of killing intent. Suddenly, Dustless's closed eyes opened again without warning. His eyes were no longer as indifferent as before, they were full of raging coldness. No wonder I sneezed so early in the morning. It turns out that you're talking about me. This is just right, anyway, Caster needs some time to prepare. During this period, I'll use you to kill time. Standing up from the couch, Dustless stared at the man coldly, and a layer of ice formed under his feet. You're also looking for me, Hero King, this is the last battle. This person's entire body was shining, radiating an intense light as bright as the sun. He stood there with his arms crossed in front of him, giving off a dignified aura without being angry. His eyes were mighty and domineering, as if they could see through people's inner thoughts, making people not dare to look at him directly. Gilgamesh, as the oldest king, your strength is beyond doubt. The title of Hero King is the king of all heroic spirits. In terms of strength, you're definitely the strongest servant. Dustless is full of praises for Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh deserves the honor of being the strongest heroic spirit. I'm very grateful to get your praise. Gilgamesh stared at the calm Dustless, full of complaints. However, I'm really not happy. I don't understand why I'm not as good as you. I shouldn't lose to anyone. Don't show such a complaining expression, no matter what, this is the last battle, no matter what the final result is, I will leave this world. Wu Qin sighed. Gilgamesh always had the attitude of God is the boss, I am the second boss. Perhaps Wu Qin was sent by God to punish him. As for the reason, it was that this guy was too arrogant and high-profile. Maybe the reason why you lost to me is because you're the unparalleled Hero King, and I'm just an ordinary person. Don't the final boss usually lose to a nobody like me? Chapter 1774. Don't get carried away, you rascal. Not long after, Gilgamesh exploded in anger. His temper wasn't good to begin with, and there was no such thing as patience in his dictionary. After several blows from Dustless, Gilgamesh's patience had been worn down. He wanted to try enduring, but he was infuriated by Dustless's contemptuous tone. In his anger, the Hero King did not hold back. The void exploded like raindrops falling to the ground. The bright sunlight was swallowed by the gorgeous and noble golden light as the void was drowned in a golden ocean. This move again. Kid, is this all you know? Don't you know how to be creative? You're hopeless. Sighing in boredom, Dustless was looking forward to it, but when he saw the light that filled the sky, he immediately lost interest. His intense interest was like a splash of cold water, disappearing without a trace. Before we begin, I have a question for you. Where's your master, Yen Feng Chili? Although Gilgamesh threatened to kill Yen Feng Chili at that time, Dustless still had a suspicious attitude towards this. First of all, Yen Feng Chili's command spell had not been used up. Wanting to kill him was tantamount to a fool's talk. I have no authority to tell you that. Moving his gaze away from Dustless's face, Gilgamesh no longer looked at the clear black eyes. Being stared at by the radiant eyes, he felt that the secret he had hidden in his heart was exposed right under Dustless's nose. Become a hornet's nest, bastard. With a wave of his hand, the sharp weapons that were entrenched in the void shot out like meteors from the sky. Naturally, there was only one target, Dustless. Shoo! 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 The horde of divine weapons shot over, riddling Dustless with holes. He was covered in wounds, and there wasn't a single spot on his body that was intact. But the strange thing was, even though he suffered a fatal blow, Dustless still stood firm. The places that were pierced only surged with a golden luster, and in a short while, they recovered to their original state. Damned fellow, it's this kind of evil cheating ability again. Seeing this, the smile on Gilgamesh's face abruptly disappeared, and he shouted, "Come out!" Buzz, Gilgamesh's words contained a powerful force. The originally weak ripples in the void gradually expanded, and an ancient aircraft covered in gold flew out. Gilgamesh leaped up and jumped up with ease. This temple is an important place where the Holy Grail is about to be born. You don't want it to be destroyed, right? I'll fight you somewhere else. As soon as he finished speaking, Gilgamesh controlled the golden aircraft to cut through the void and fly straight into the distant horizon. Idiot, although I don't know what you're planning, but do you think I don't know this kind of laughable plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain? With a smirk, Wuchen formed a seal with his hand. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A shadow clone that was exactly the same as Dustless suddenly appeared and chased after Gilgamesh's location. Hero King, a shadow clone is enough to deal with you. Looking up at the disappearing light in the distance, Dustless turned and shot toward the temple. His observation hockey spread out, and after perceiving the location of Saber and Castor, he lazily walked toward them. At the same time, in another direction, Saber and Castor were together. Although the two were like fire and water, their cooperation at the moment was unexpectedly smooth, and the project that would have taken a few hours was greatly shortened. Inside the mysterious unknown magic circle, there were various messy red lines that were crisscrossed with each other. It seemed that there was no rule, but it was permeated with indescribable energy fluctuations. The magic circle that looked ordinary became extraordinary and mysterious because of the existence of this energy. Gulp. In the center of the magic circle, there was a doll with a straight face. Her skin was as delicate as jade, and her silver hair was scattered on the ground. This person's appearance was exactly the same as Ilya's. It's really a ghost, Dustless. That guy will take the initiative to hand over this girl. That guy's head won't be filled with water. Whether this Holy Grail summoning ritual fails or succeeds, she will disappear. Castor said to himself. He also knew the girl lying in the magic circle, Ilya. You're mistaken, Castor. Saber looked at the unconscious Ilya and explained seriously, although this girl is exactly the same as Ilya, they have nothing to do with each other. This Ilya in front of us is actually a backup puppet of the Einstein's Balin family. The real Ilya is still alive and well. So that's how it is. How could that guy call out his own people as a prop, unless he killed him? Castor heard her words, and then decisively recited an obscure spell. The body of the doll Ilya also glowed, and then under Saber's expectant gaze, it turned into a holy grail inlaid with pearls and gems. Did it work? With an indescribable joy on her face, Saber excitedly asked loudly. It's commendable, you two are heroic spirits, but you can complete the summoning of the Holy Grail. Not bad. In order to express my gratitude, you two will die, Saber and Castor. The cold sound waves suddenly came. Castor and Saber turned their heads and looked. Yen Feng Chili walked out of the corner. Chapter 1775. Is this guy an idiot? Listening to Yen Feng Chili's arrogant remarks, Saber and Castor's heart were very strange. A mere human being actually wanted to fight a servant. Wasn't this the typical behavior of looking for abuse? Yen Feng Chili, do you think you are Dustless? Unfortunately, I'm really sorry. If everyone were to face all the servants on their own like he did, we servant would lose our jobs. Saber's words revealed a touch of sarcasm. Hearing this, Yen Feng Chili smiled carelessly. Then, he said in a shocked tone, the world-renowned Night King, do you still remember my name? It's an honor. How can you still laugh? Castor's eyes were strange. A master can still remain so calm in the face of two servants. Do you think you are ignorant or courageous? No matter what, you must die here today. Saber held the Excalibur in her hand, and her eyes were cold. Ha! Seeing this, Yen Fengili only laughed sinisterly and said in a hoarse voice, the two of you are mistaken. I should have said before that I am here to take the Holy Grail. I still need it to answer the questions of my life. You are dreaming. Castor and Saber unanimously refuted loudly, especially Castor's reaction was the most excited, his delicate face even blushed, which was very cute. Of course, it was all because of anger. In order to be resurrected, Castor and Dustless signed a contract. She gave her first time to Dustless, so that the latter would become her new master. The price she paid was as heavy as a mountain. And now this inexplicable guy actually wanted to take away the Holy Grail. Such a practice obviously angered Castor, the tigress. Since you want to die so much, I will fulfill your wish. She gently waved her hand. In the void, countless magic bullets fell from the sky. You two idiots underestimate me too much. Yen Fengqili smiled gloomily, like a demon in the abyss, shuddering. Then, he picked up his right arm full of command seals and suddenly shouted, Gilgamesh, come out quickly. Buzz buzz buzz. Next to Yen Fengqili, a man in golden armor with red eyes and golden hair appeared. Light of a firefly. Gilgamesh snorted disdainfully as he raised his head to look at the falling magic. Shortly after, a large number of ripples appeared in the void behind his back, and countless noble artifacts slowly emerged from it. Disappear. Swish. Swish. Under Gilgamesh's command, the precious artifacts that he had been saving up for a long time all erupted and shot towards the horizon. Boom boom boom. The magic bullets in the sky were destroyed in an instant, and the situation was one-sided. The powerful magic bullets were destroyed, and a large number of noble phantoms were shot at Castor. So strong. Castor's pupils suddenly shrank as he smelled the smell of death. Don't even think about it. Seeing that Gilgamesh was going to attack Castor, Saber flashed sideways and appeared in front of Castor like lightning, then she raised her sword and swung it. Excalibur. The beautiful golden sword poured out and shattered the vast sky, and the debris of the weapons fell from the sky. Boom boom boom. The huge light was extremely powerful, and when it came in contact with the attack of the noble phantoms, it exploded and smashed hundreds of weapons in one fell swoop. On the surface, she's a woman. But on the inside, she's a ferocious lion. Gilgamesh murmured as he looked at Castor and Saber calmly. You two have no way out today. Without that guy to protect you, you're going to die. Gilgamesh. Why are you here? Saber was alert. Dustless could suppress Gilgamesh at will, but she didn't have that ability. Idiot, this is called the strategy of luring the tiger away from the mountain. I ordered Gilgamesh to deliberately lead Dustless away, and finally, I used the command spell to order him to appear. I took advantage of the short time when Dustless was not there to kill you too. Then, I took the Holy Grail. Use the power of the Holy Grail to kill him. Yen Fengqi laughed proudly, and his distorted cheeks were full of joy. At this point, Yen Fengqi didn't expect Gilgamesh to kill Dustless. He also realized that Dustless was powerful. However, Yen Fengqi didn't despair. Since Gilgamesh couldn't do it, he could count on the universal wishing machine, the Holy Grail. Naive, you want to take advantage of the short time when Dustless is not there to kill me and Castor. I'm sorry to tell you that this kind of thing is very difficult to do. Saber's eyes were like torches. Although she didn't think that she was Gilgamesh's opponent, at least she could delay him for a while. Your confident look is really disgusting, Saber. I let you do whatever you want in the past because I was kind. I don't even need a minute to kill you. Gilgamesh's face was cold. The situation was special. He couldn't let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so Gilgamesh didn't pretend to be cool. He directly used the parting sword. Yay. In the past, Gilgamesh liked to die, so he rarely used his full strength, but now it was different. He must kill Saber and Castor in an instant, and then use the power of the Holy Grail to kill Dustless. That was his and Yen Fengqi's plan. Chapter 1776. Ha 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 ha. Without that annoying guy Dustless, do you think the two of you can defeat Gilgamesh? Just wait to be slaughtered. Yen Fengqi let out a hysterical laugh. Soon after, he walked toward the Holy Grail with the attitude of a victor. The fanaticism in the depths of his eyes could not be concealed. That's not something you can touch. Seeing that Yen Fengqi ignored their existence, Castor was angry. She had regarded the Holy Grail as her own thing. How could she let others touch it? Whoosh! Rows of magic bullets flew out again and stabbed toward Yen Fengqi's back. Haven't you figured out the situation yet? You have no chance of winning. Yen Fengqi turned his head and glanced at the attack, then he said indifferently, Gilgamesh, do it. Whoosh! In the blue sky, several sharp blades cut through the sky, and the sound of breaking air quickly approached the magic bullets. Poochie! 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 The noble phantasm shot out from the gate of Babylon, crushed the magic bullets effortlessly. Yen Fengqi, who was safe and sound, continued to approach the Holy Grail. Finally, I will get you. Close to the Holy Grail, Yen Fengqi's heart was in his throat, and his hands couldn't help but grab it. Even the mysterious liquid flowing out of the Holy Grail, the evil of the world, was ignored by him. Saber, before we start, I have something that has been puzzling me and I want to ask you. Gilgamesh held the parting sword in his hand and stared deeply at Saber, then he said, I don't understand why I am not as good as that guy. Even you, as the king's possession, chose him in the end. In the end, Gilgamesh's tone was obviously twitching with anger. His appointed wife actually slept with Dustless in advance. Gilgamesh's head was about to explode. He could already see the green hat on his head. All of this was bestowed by Dustless. Gilgamesh was nailed on the mark of shame. This also became a haze in his heart that he couldn't get rid of. There is no need to answer this question at all. Saber just shook her head and asked, How do you think you are better than Dustless? How can I be better than Dustless? Do you still need to say that? Gilgamesh felt that he had too many advantages, and there were countless aspects that surpassed Dustless, such as When Gilgamesh was about to speak freely, he was speechless. He blushed with shame as he realized that he was not as good as old Dustless in every aspect. For example, strength. The gap between them was self-evident. For example, wealth. Gilgamesh had no advantage in this aspect. With the existence of Babylon of the king, Gilgamesh was destined to be the richest person in the world. Unfortunately, old Dustless also had this ability. Next was identity and status. Gilgamesh had 2/3 of the godhood, but it seemed to be useless. He was still crushed by Dustless. Not to mention that it was only 2/3, even if he was a complete god, he could only nurse a grudge in the end. Now you know what Dustless and you are aware of, right? Saber said softly as she stared at Gilgamesh, who was unwilling to give up. Let's end this, Hero King. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. Hearing that, Gilgamesh's disobedient sword, began to spin, and a destructive red energy ripple was released from the disobedient sword, like a tornado that was gradually expanding. The Holy Grail is mine. Oh, it hurts. A heart-wrenching scream was heard in the void. Saber and the Hero King, who were about to start the battle, were stunned, and the relic in their hands was withdrawn at the same time. B** starred, B** starred, B** starred. Which B** starred did this? Come out. Yen Fengqili was wailing on the ground in pain, his cheeks were sweating from the pain, and even his body was trembling uncontrollably. The ground was covered in blood. Chili, you, Gilgamesh widened his eyes and looked over. Yen Fengqili's arms had mysteriously disappeared, and his hands were chopped off by someone. D*****. Yen Fengqili wailed in pain. The Holy Grail was right in front of him, and a flash of light suddenly struck, mercilessly crushing Yen Fengqili's dreams and chopping off his hands. Yen Fengqili was in so much pain that he grimaced. Damn it, I've already finished my drink, and you guys are only starting to fight. I can't bear to watch this anymore. A young man with an empty drink bottle walked out from the dark alley that Yen Fengqili had just walked out from. He said to the two with a slightly regretful expression, I gave you the best stage, but the contestants' dance was unbearable to watch. Dustless. Yen Fengqili and Gilgamesh exclaimed at the same time. All this while, the annoying figure that they did not want to see the most had appeared, and their faces turned pale. You should have been sent away by me, right? How could you be back so soon? Gilgamesh said with a hateful expression. In order to delay Dustless for a while, Yen Fengqili and he had even set up a large number of traps within the enchantment. You two self-righteous idiots. The one who followed Gilgamesh was actually just a shadow doppelganger. My original body didn't leave Ludong Temple at all. As for what I've been doing, I'm sure you've already figured it out. I've been performing in front of two complacent idiots all the time. Hearing this, Yen Fengqili and Gilgamesh's faces turned red, and they glared at Dustless furiously. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.